Cool. Y'all ready to go?
Let's do it.
Ready to go?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's rock it. Cool. All right, everybody. Welcome to the next episode of the Dream Job Podcast. We are super excited to be here today with you with two amazing local DFW legends. To my left here is Mr. Doug Bush and Patricia Islas, also known as Team Islas. They are composers, they are educators, they are arrangers, they are adjudicators, and might I say they are also a power couple?
Oh, maybe, possibly.
Maybe, possibly.
How do you rate that? How do you rank that? How do we
Rank that?
Yeah, how do we rate that? Are they a power couple?
Oh, I don't know.
Is that a measurable
There was
thing?
Benifer, right?
Yeah.
That's
You
true.
have to combine their names.
Yes.
I don't want to be in the same conversation.
We'll separate with there.
Okay, never mind. Scratch that. Delete that. Okay, cool.
But all those things are true, and so we're super excited to have both of y'all on here and hear your story and hear, where you guys have come from and how you got to where you are today and the very unique thing that both of you guys bring to the percussion community. So,
Wow. Thank you so much for having us. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So I think what we've been kind of asking all of our guests so far is just, tell us a little bit about your background, where you guys came from, where you grew up, what kind of programs you came from, and what led you to eventually meeting and doing what you do now.
That's a lot. Okay, so, excuse me. Let me begin. I grew up in the Colony, which is a suburb of Dallas.
Cool.
And happened to hit it timing-wise where all of the band organizations and educators were just really, really strong. I had directors like John Benzer in middle school and Dick Clardy in high school.
Yeah.
Jeff Prosperi was my very first percussion instructor.
Wow.
From 6th grade all the way through 9th grade. And then I had Kevin Brubaker came in and was a percussion director there. But a really phenomenal experience. The band program was really strong. We did all the stuff. The middle school was honor band, that high school was honor band, and I got to perform with them. We went to Midwest. We did the Rose Bowl parade. I had all those opportunities.
Nice.
And because we're so close to North Texas, because a lot of my teachers were from North Texas or related to people that were there, often had access to lesson teachers and clinicians that came in from that school. So, man, I was really fortunate to kind of have that as my jumping off point.
Cool.
My story is kind of the opposite. Born and raised in Dallas, but I'm old enough to remember a movie called Drumline the movie. I don't know if you guys...
We're familiar with that. Trying to get Nick Cannon on the podcast at some point. We'll see. He hasn't responded. There you go.
Numerous emails and texts.
We're going to get in contact with one of his children, I think.
Yeah.
They might be a better way
They
to
source you up.
But we digress, so.
Yeah, no, I think there are 40, 45 kids in the band total, no director of percussion, and that kind of vibe. Definitely, not quite show band, but not quite what we would think of as marching band, somewhere kind of in between.
Sure.
I had drumline battles, third quarter,
Nice.
South Oak Cliff and W.T. White head to head, so kind of grew up in that culture a little bit. And conversely, the positives from it that ended up being invaluable throughout my career, though, were by the time I was a junior, I was writing the music.
Yeah.
And I was running the drum line, and so I remember writing our first ever split bass drum part. There's no muffling in the bass drums. They're all roughly the same size,
Oh my gosh.
ebony pinstripes.
Nice.
And writing these quarter notes and then eighth notes that, doom, doom, doom.
Everything
doom,
is
doom,
resonant.
doom.
Yeah.
Oh, and they're just loving it. And
Nice.
having to kind of figure out the social skills necessary to get 10 of your peers to agree to coming after school to rehearse for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So that we can maybe sound good.
That sounds like a valuable skill to have.
It was insane,
Yeah.
and I'm handwriting all the drum parts, and I got to do that kind of my last 2 years, my junior and senior year.
Cool.
And so I'm going to North Texas. I don't know how to hold 4 mallets. I don't know, a lot of that stuff, but that's what they're proficient at teaching me. I
Right.
didn't have opportunities while I was at North Texas to run a drum line or arrange for a drum line. Or,
Yeah.
So later in life it ended up working out really well.
Cool.
That's awesome.
And at some point you guys met and kind of started working together and all that good stuff. How'd that come to be?
Yeah, I think it was probably my 3rd year at North Texas. We were both in the A-line drum line that year, which is the competitive line that goes to PASIC or that used to go to PASIC and
Oh, yeah.
compete. And I played marimba, and Doug played bass drum, and we had been around each other, but there's just so many people in that program. There's so many percussionists in that program that, I had seen him perform at departmentals, and we may have crossed each other in the hallway, but never even really been in an ensemble before that together.
Sure.
And that was kind of our first interaction.
Yeah. We're being real, what's the word here? We're being real humble here. This class was in the top ensemble, so this is why we weren't an ensemble guy, right? Mr. Bush is down here scraping by, right? We're in drumline, and Miss Islas is pretty introverted, like keeps to herself.
Sure.
And so it's like, oh, this chick seems cool, but I don't really know her. And O2 PASIC, we were, some of the students were going to compete solos there.
Yeah.
Patricia was doing a marimba solo. I think she might have even won. Paul had all the students that were going to perform their solos, perform them for the drum line in advance, right? Get the nerves out, have a performance opportunity. And when she was playing, it was like, oh, that's who this chick is.
Yeah.
Like through her playing, it was like I was able to see a whole new person.
Yeah.
And so shortly after that, when we were done with rehearsal, I went to help her put up her marimba, and I, tried my best attempt at flirting with her, and trying to, which probably involved like, hey, you want to come back to the apartment and play Street Fighter?
Yeah.
With the bass line.
He's not lying. That's
exactly how it went down.
Man, and to my shock, she's like, yeah, that sounds awesome.
Cool.
And so one thing led to another, and we started dating very shortly after that. Maybe a year after that or so, and
we had a pretty epic trip to Red Rocks.
Yes.
We were hanging out as friends at the time, and I was a huge fan of Bjork. Like, I had just gotten into Bjork. I think it may have been right after her Oscar appearance where she's wearing the swan dress, and it was like, who the heck is this chick?
Yeah.
What is going on here? And then I saw her perform, and it was even more stunned. Like, what is this creature?
Wow.
Right? And then dug into her music, and there's so much creativity there, and so many, it's pop music, but in a way that I had never heard before. So it really resonated with me. So I kind of became obsessed. And the closest that she came to Texas over the summer, I think it was in 2002 or 2003, was going to be Red Rocks.
Wow.
Which was not that close. And
not that close.
I didn't really have anyone in my friend circle that was that into Bjork to be able to go all the way to Colorado.
It's not like Swifties now where you have 100 girls where you can just ask any girl, throw a rock and hit a Swiftie.
But he had a group of friends that were interested in going, and he asked me if I wanted to go, and I was like, oh yeah, heck yeah, of course, let's do it. So we rode up to Denver in his Aerostar minivan in August.
No AC.
No AC.
You didn't tell her about that before. There's no way.
I think maybe you already knew.
Yeah. It was no secret.
But it was just a really incredible experience. I mean, kind of surreal in terms of just the experience itself. We went the day before, and we're walking around the park, and someone we were with knew of a little cave, and we hung out in there, and it started to drizzle, and then we heard Bjork's voice because she was doing a sound check, right? And so I'm in the same space as this person, this idol of mine, and we're sitting here together, and it was just a really incredible experience.
Nice.
And then we came back, and after that we started dating.
Yeah.
So Bjork is you owe a lot of what your relationship to.
Unlike
to Bjork.
Patricia, Bjork was a huge part of my high school musical education. I felt,
Wow.
a lot of my musical education was coming from. For lack of a better term, I guess from MTV and the radio, right?
Sure.
And Rolling Stones and modern drummers, stuff like that, right? And so I was just, I would mow yards, and I would take that money and I'd either buy cymbals or CDs. That was, and because of the time, I mean, again, I'm not trying to sound like the old guy here, but it's there were multiple times I would go and I would look at a CD card, and I don't know who this is. I have no idea, and I have no way of finding out. And I think I might like it, so I would just buy it and go home and listen.
Sure.
But yeah, early in that process, with Human Behavior and debut, the whole debut album, and then the post album, it was oh man, this chick's operating on a different frequency than a lot of these other kind of alternative artists. But at the time, that genre was kind of becoming big.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff was coming out of Seattle. It was all good, but it all had kind of this similar vibe. And then I really remember Bjork and PJ Harvey hitting, and they had these really distinct, strong, different, unique vibes.
Sure.
That just, really resonated. And so yeah, when a friend was like, "Oh man, she's going to be at Red Rocks," I didn't even know what Red Rocks was at the time. This outdoor natural amphitheater, right? And knew that Patricia was into Bjork. It was okay. Hey, let's go check this out. And I'm not trying to make it sound like a Disney movie, but the experience was one of those like literal life changing. The trip up was phenomenal. The concert, greatest concert I've ever been to. Trip back, I think that trip back's probably when both of us figured out like, oh, okay, hey man, this is a thing.
You should write that out as like a screenplay and submit it to a director. I think it would do well at Cannes and Sundance.
Okay.
Maybe not commercial. It sounds like it's not maybe commercially successful, but some of the best movies are those. You know what I mean?
So then, who do you guys cast for us?
Whoa, that is a tricky question. I don't know. You guys turn the tables on us.
I wasn't ready for that
I
one.
don't know. Think about that one for a second. Let's let the podcast go, and we're gonna simmer on that.
I'm
and
gonna
we'll
go
have
right
some,
back to Bennifer.
Yeah.
Just go.
Ben Affleck. Yeah,
So keep
definitely.
that third going.
Matt Damon and Jennifer Love Hewitt.
Musicians fall in love out of music.
Yeah.
And what can go wrong?
Michael Cera and who's the lady from Superbad? What's her name? And La La Land.
Yes. Yeah.
Redhead girl.
Yes.
Maybe we get Jack Black to play Bjork.
He can do anybody.
He was great as Bowser.
I didn't get the chance to see that. Have y'all seen the Super Mario Bros.
No,
thing yet?
I do want to see it though.
Yeah, I want to check it out.
Is it?
Yeah, for sure.
That's what we've heard.
Real quick side question, since you mentioned CD, album covers that you have no idea who that is. Who was on your shirt? Can you explain that to us?
Oh yeah, Car Bomb is one of our favorite bands. They're a band from New York, and how about you, Missy? How would you describe Car Bomb? I'll tell you this before she describes it. When we saw them live for the first time, which was maybe a year ago or so in Austin, and we were like front row, like against the stage, right?
Wow.
You could reach out and touch like the kick drum, right?
Yeah. Oh wow.
That evening after the concert, when we went to eat, she told me if I could kind of redo things, like that's what I would want to do for a living.
Wow.
Which she's never said our whole life. She was just like, that was like an experience I've never,
Yeah.
So with that in mind, how would you?
Man, it's obviously very technical. There's a million notes flying by.
Is it like math rock or?
Yeah,
more
like
progressive
a
or?
heavier version, heavier version of that.
Cool.
A lot of math happening.
Nice.
But just unexpected and chaotic, but in a very thoughtful way. You can tell that there's been a lot of design in the chaos.
Cool.
Which is fascinating to me.
Sure. Yeah.
A lot of tempo changes just like on a dime, but
Yeah.
super tight.
Really?
Like incredibly clean. And I was just entertained by the vocalist the whole time because he was just dancing around like he's, playing Taylor Swift or something.
Yeah.
And it's like this incredibly heavy metal. But yeah, I don't know. How would you describe it?
Yeah, like everything. It's like the guys in the band, let's see, there's a guitarist, a bassist, a drummer, and a vocalist. Like none of them have families. Two of them are, I believe, computer programmers. One of them's like a philosopher, like studied astrophysics, I think, or something. And then the other one is like a graphic artist.
Oh, cool.
And
he probably designed that shirt.
It's exactly right. He designed that shirt. That's
Nice.
Yeah, he does all the design for him, and this is like the thing they do. Like they do their job.
Yeah.
And the guys there don't know they're in one of the most advanced technical metal groups on the planet, right?
Yeah.
It's just a guy that does code or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they go out and I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Animals as Leaders, but they
I was
going to
ask if that was one of in their genre.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of it's that Animals, but it's unironically like 4 times as difficult.
Wow.
So it is, shocking. But like Patricia said, I think we've all kind of probably experienced this. You could take, technicality or whatever, the velocity, virtuosity, just for the sake of it. There's no like musical substance. It's like, oh hey man, I'm playing 3 camps on my kick drums. It's like, okay, cool. I guess, I don't know, right? Or I'm putting this 13 against this 5 and okay, yeah, whatever, but there's no musical and that's kind of maybe the beauty that kind of resonates so much is the at the core of all that there is this like musical integrity that helps it just showcase the good qualities of the technical aspects by enhancing like the kind of genuine musicalness of it, if that makes sense. But,
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it was
Sweet.
really-
That sounds like a straight up review. You guys, you have a future when you're done being amazing percussion educators. You have a future in reviewing albums and reviewing bands. I think somewhere for
no,
some.
I mean, disclaimer.
Yeah.
It's not for everyone. There's definitely
niche.
an abrasiveness to it on first listen. But if you kind of dig into what's behind it, there's probably a lot there to appreciate.
Cool. Well, there you go. Car Bomb and Bjork got some free publicity there from Team Islas. Well, I just love that we just kind of diverted into this whole conversation about music, because this podcast is all about, it's about having your dream job, and you guys have a very specific job that you do that I think most people who know you and people who get to observe the great work y'all do, I mean, it's pretty clear that you guys are living your dream job. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so, on the other side of that is like, this is all about music and how music impacts people and how music impacts children and students and each other. And so thank you for sharing those very personal stories with us. And I think that just adds a lot to the substance of kind of what we're here to talk about. So keep us going from where you left off. You had this amazing, magical Bjork concert experience. And then you come back and you're in percussion ensemble in class on Monday. And what happens next?
Finishing college, there were things that happened that were kind of starting to lean down the path of creating a career. Like Doug was already teaching drum corps. He roped me into teaching drum corps. I'd never marched drum corps before, but they needed some help at Southwind. And
cool. Shout out Southwind.
Yeah, shout out Southwind.
That's awesome.
And
Are they still? They came back, right? Or a couple years ago. I remember there was a flare up. We can cut this. We can cut this part. I know it's a sore subject.
No.
But I knew some other people who worked with Southwind that were super passionate about it.
Drew Lessinger was in that group. Matt Moore was in that group.
Yeah.
Wow.
Joe Hobbs, my first year.
Yeah, Joe Hobbs is who I'm talking about. Yeah.
Lots of great guys, and some of the, to this day, hands down, some of the best educators we've ever. TR and Pat Fitzgibbon, Paul Weber. It was incredible. It was super informative before we went to Blue Knights.
Nice. So some time at Southwind, and then eventually, sounds like Blue Knights.
Yeah, doing that a little bit. And then for me personally, I experienced probably the only time I ever have this period where I didn't really want to practice. Up until then, I was obsessive, always in the practice room, always trying to learn new stuff. And I was starting to get to the end of my college career, maybe a junior or a senior, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't really, I didn't have a desire to go on and get a master's degree because they're very expensive, and I didn't want to take on that financial burden without a true purpose.
Sure.
In my heart, I always wanted to be a performer. I thought it would be playing marimba, but performing anything, I think that's, to my core, it is a necessity for me. And I just wasn't sure. I didn't even have access. I wasn't going to have access to an instrument. I didn't own a marimba, right? So there was a period where I was kind of a little bit unsure, and that was the only time that I couldn't find any reason to go to the practice room. But we had been listening to Bjork and a lot of like electronic music, like Aphex Twin and Square Pusher.
Cool.
And that really sparked an interest in like the electronic side of things, and maybe trying to find a way to take acoustic instruments and blend it with the electronic. So once I kind of had that idea, like maybe I want to go that route, it sparked back up again, and I was like, okay, let's go.
Nice.
And then it was like, I need to get out of school as quickly as possible.
Finish this piece of paper and go do what you wanted to do.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Very cool. And how were you playing into all this at the same time? You guys were y'all based in North Texas still, living in North Texas when you weren't on the road, or?
Yes. Yep. So teaching drum corps, and then come back and finish school, and then. Patricia's degree is in performance. Mine was education.
Yeah, that was my next question too. Is if y'all are both education majors, or if one of y'all was performance.
So I was the mission warden at Sherman High School for 2 years. There with Jeff Bradford, it was a great experience. It was a wonderful experience. But those 2 or 3 years of being like the director of percussion studies, if you will, while she was simultaneously teaching lessons and writing and playing and stuff. While also teaching drum corps and also writing for drum corps, I was arranging for Southwind at that time also. It was not a dream job. It was like
we're quite there yet.
Yeah, this isn't quite it. But very quickly after that, we were able to pivot. So, you get to the dream job. I think we were living in McKinney. Now we live in Plano. So we're always in the Metroplex.
Yeah.
Teaching a lot of camps, working with a lot of people, getting to see inside of a lot of great programs. And so, I very quickly pulled back and kind of took the same route Patricia was taking, where we were both doing lessons 4 or 5 days a week, and then would do camps and teach drum corps, and then slowly start writing, and then obviously get to write for being a minute John Horn. And then
when was the first year y'all did that with him?
Is it 2011 or
I have no idea.
12, something like that?
One of the videos we
it'd be
watched
11 or
in his episode, which will come out at the time of this filming a couple weeks from now, is the 2014 Lone
Yeah.
Star.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. I mean, really, really amazing writing.
That's so cool.
Super cohesive. We're gonna talk about y'all's writing a lot, but I'm just trying to get a picture of when y'all were there and when you were writing for them. Were you also involved with the program and teaching lessons and all that stuff?
Yes, yeah. And so that it's been a winding path, I guess. But if someone was to say, like, now, looking at us now, and like, okay, you say your job is a dream job. What is your job? I always describe as we're kind of like mercenaries, for hire, like, because we do
the hustle,
adjudicate, and we write and this and that. But I guess we've done it long enough now, and we're established enough that we're very fortunate. When you're younger, you just say yes.
Yeah.
Hey man, my middle school needs someone to judge solo and ensemble.
Yep.
Tomorrow, I'm gonna pay you $150. There's gonna be Shalaskis.
Yeah.
Like, yes, sir, I'm there.
Yeah.
Let's go. We're kind of at a point now where we get to be a little bit more selective.
Cool.
Which makes it even more of kind of a dream. We tend to now work with people that we only enjoy working with.
Sure.
And programs that we that we respect and respect us in return and things of that nature. So. I think the moral of the story a little bit in this formulation of a dream job is like being true to yourself of the things you enjoy about the gig and don't, right?
Yeah.
And having the courage to go for those things, right? And know that they're not always going to work out. But as long as you stick to it and you're willing to learn from those experiences and those failures, and if you're willing to continually surround yourself with educators that you look up to, right? Steel sharpens steel.
Yeah.
So when you're getting to see inside Jeff Osmore's Colleyville program, right? And how does he talk to his beginners? How does he talk to his high school kids? How does he talk to the kids at Blue Knights? And why?
How does he talk to adults?
How does he talk to adults?
Yeah.
Right? And you get to see inside Binghamton's program. You get to see inside Jimmy Lebrecht when he's at Lake Highlands, and then when he goes to Highland Park, and then and you get to see inside Hebron with Tanner Trigg, and you get to see inside Coppell was actually.
There's so many shout outs happening right now. I love it.
Yeah.
There's shout outs.
We've been a lot of places.
Great. No, that's great. Everyone you're saying is all really, really great educators that I think people watching this are going to have a lot of respect for.
Well, there's such a unique opportunity to get to see inside all those programs, and then formulate kind of your values and approaches over the things you see. I mean, when you're in one place, you kind of just know the goods and bads of that place.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, oh man, if you would just do this one thing Jimmy's doing,
Yeah.
you wouldn't be having this problem with your beginners you're having right now, right?
Yeah.
And man, if you would do, so we're just very, very fortunate, I guess, that it all kind of worked out like that.
Yeah, and early on, when you do say yes to a lot of things out of necessity, out of the need to pay the bills, you often take gigs that are maybe not as ideals, but those I think were really integral to furthering our education.
Sure.
Right? Like he's saying, seeing into all these awesome programs with these incredible teachers, seeing into programs that are smaller and still developing, or where the culture hasn't been developed, it's another opportunity to kind of learn what does it look like from the ground up?
Yeah.
What are some steps that work to fulfill progression in the culture? What are some things that don't really work?
Yeah.
And bringing that to each new working opportunity.
Yeah.
Which I feel like I've seen a lot of younger educators who come straight out of college and then step into their own full-time gig that don't have that benefit, and so that they don't quite have that perspective of oh no, it is really good here, or there's a problem here that maybe you can't solve, maybe it's better to be at a different place.
Yeah.
They don't have that perspective to be able to make those judgments.
Sure. Well, I think it's really cool hearing y'all's perspective on that. We haven't had someone yet who, does what you do, and yet you guys are talking about all the different programs that you've been in, and all the programs you're talking about, y'all weren't the, director but you still cared about where you were, and you still cared about making a difference there. And probably more times than not, helping those directors, especially now, and in the last 5 or 10 years, like, hey, we've kind of been around, like, we can kind of help influence in a really positive way. I think that speaks a lot to both of y'all's character and your passion and your care for the activity. But I want to go back a little bit, and I know Shannon will really appreciate this. Like, you talked about working somewhere where you're respected and you respect them. And, I think one thing we're trying to do with this podcast is reach, like, a lot of young percussion educators, maybe in college or maybe going into college or maybe just coming out of college, because this could be a scary job for a lot of reasons at this time, in our history of percussion directing and percussion education. And so I know for a fact there's so many people out there who look up to y'all and want to, kind of do what y'all do. And maybe they don't want to be a director of percussion or college educator, but they want to teach lessons and they want to make that career. And they want to write great books and arrange music. So I just think that's really cool that you share, like, try to go some, maybe there's a stage where you're a yes man a little bit and you're getting experience, but, stay true to your values and stay true to, working in programs that respect you and you have respect for. Can you speak a little bit on that? Because you're a great example of someone who's, been somewhere for so long and people have, continually shown how much they appreciate you, Shannon.
Yeah, I get this question a lot. I get people at other band directors that reach out and say, hey, I'm looking for a lesson teacher.
Yeah.
You've been at Forney for a long time teaching lessons. I'm like, yes, I have. There's certain perks that come with that, and there's certain responsibilities that come with keeping someone at your program for a long time, especially someone who is qualified and who works well with the kids and is attribute to your program. Yeah. So so I get that question all the time, and they go, well, how do I find a Doug Bush, a Patricia Islas, a Shannon Jack, someone who's like at a program all the time? I say, man, people like us are kind of few and far between who are just like lesson teacher gigs. You get most of lesson teachers who are college kids, and they're just help them pay the bills, and they're kind of doing that, but they're really on their way to a degree and then hopefully a full-time job. So I tell people, like, hey, one of the things that's kept me around Forney has always been the support of the directors that have been here, starting with Mario Luna, Rob Lozano, Riley Warren, like all these guys who like, hey, let's make sure we take care of Shannon. Make sure we take care of Shannon. And I'm sure Doug and Patricia get taken care of very well where they are, because it's a different kind of gig.
It's a people industry.
It's a people industry, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it is. When I was in college, I was just talking about this with a friend of ours the other day. I used to listen on the radio when people listen to the radio. And I was driving from school to like teach somewhere or home. I used to listen to Dave Ramsey's podcast. He's like this financial guru. Oh, yeah. And there's tons of advice. I had no clue about anything with finances then. Yeah. But one of the pieces of advice that he had that really struck me was explaining, like, it doesn't matter what you do. You could be a hairdresser, you could be a CEO of a company, you could be a pilot. First and foremost, you're in the business of people. Because it's the people who are going to be paying you, it's the people who you're offering your services to. And if you're not aware of that, I think it speaks to the quality of your character and your professionalism that you could stay here this long through other directors coming in. Because it's not always true that someone new comes in and they want to keep the people who have been here previously. But it speaks to the quality of your work that they could see that your value and made it a point to make you feel respected and taken care of so that you would stay.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been a really interesting journey. My time here at Forney, and I'm always very appreciative because, it's a pretty niche thing. Like, it's very niche. Like, people don't understand. Like, what do you do? Like, well, I'm kind of like, don't worry about it.
It's hard to put a title to what
it's hard
do.
to,
It's not one thing that Shannon
It's not
does
one
for us,
thing. There's people who have worked in district, and they see me. They've seen me for years. They go, what does he do? He's band. They just know
everything around it. The band better.
He's our guy. I don't know.
He's don't just leave him alone. He's fine.
He's good. Just move on.
That's basically how it goes. Yeah. That's awesome. I guess lesson teacher, and doing what you guys do. What are some of the things that you look for when someone does approach you, and maybe a new opportunity? Hey, we want to bring you in to write our drumline show. And with that, we have this amount of lesson students and these things. Maybe explain the difference of what that looked like maybe 10 years ago and what that would look like now. I'm sure that's quite different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Earlier in our career, we were more into diversifying, I guess, in terms of like, being at multiple programs. Like, so coming out, a program like Horn, when Bingaman was there, couldn't, there were 3 lesson teachers, us and Clayton. They can't give me 5 days of lessons, right? They can give me 2 days of lessons. And Jimmy at Highland Park can give me the other 2, or Tanner at Hebron can give her the other 2, or whatever. So for a long time, and then also, is exactly what she said, you're at this school, percussion director loves you, then he leaves the next year to do finance or coding or whatever.
Intergalactic real estate.
New person comes in from Ohio and they got a Rhythm X buddy they're bringing with them, and you don't got a job anymore or whatever, right? So that was also a little bit of a safety mechanism where it was like, if something went really crazy at one school, you're only losing a couple days instead of your whole, So early in our career, that was kind of just how it went. But again, was very fortunate to get to kind of see inside all these programs and then become more attached and kind of like go beyond just being the lesson teacher, teaching the camps and writing the music and things like that. And then it wasn't until when Mr. Shear left Coppell, so Ms. Chernow's first year, maybe 2017, does that sound right?
Possibly.
That when she came in, we didn't know Annie at all. And so again, that was another big question mark. There were a lot of things happening in our life right there that required a lot of like calmness and poise on our end and willingness to see like, okay, what's going to happen. And Annie came in and Ms. Chernow came in and immediately made us feel so valued and so welcomed, and honestly kind of gave us more freedom than even Mr. Shear had at that point, in terms of like running ensembles and choosing, which I felt was so she had so much foresight for being a younger educator coming into an established program. I remember in the first meeting she said, clearly what's going on out here is working. I'm not going to kind of try to come in and blow it up, the first day. And we had seen in our career these really great programs, and then a new guy comes in, first day there, we're going to go traditional, and we're going to change these drum heads, and we're going to put the basses behind, and we're going to do this. And it's like,
for an ensemble,
hey man,
on the field.
Even if you have all those values and eventually want them to be part of your program, you're totally disregarding this 15-year-old who just lost their favorite teacher and does not know you. And, I feel like respect is something that is earned personally,
Absolutely.
and you earn it through your actions, right? So, that situation then made me feel comfortable going, okay, I think I'm going to commit 100% to Coppell. Right? And lessons. And then we were picking up more and more and more writing at the time. And Patricia, then she came in full-time Coppell, I think the very next year, and we've kind of been there. And now when Ms. Chernow left, Mr. Wynn was her assistant director, and now he's the head director, and he's kept us, right? And new band director, Ms. Shuttlesworth, has made us feel more welcome and more included in every facet than maybe we've ever felt in our career, kind of like top down. It really is like, when you say dream job, it is a dream scenario for Teen East Lost at the moment, right? For sure. So that's kind of the difference between before and now. Now, in reality, could we teach less lessons and write more shows and maybe do some more clinic and educate and make more money? Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. But that's never been the cornerstone of kind of our philosophy or why we do what we do. There's a uniqueness in like I'm in the room for half an hour with this quad kid every week since he was like 12. And then I'm in the drumline. When I'm writing the beats, like I'm thinking of Gabe, or I'm thinking of Matthew, or I'm thinking of Dana, or I'm thinking of Ohm, or I'm thinking of Scott, or whoever. Like I'm that kid. There was a big moment in the bass feature last year that ended with a dotted 30-second note split hand-to-hand on the top two, and that came from the second bass drummer over the summer just sending me a video of music he had written where he's splitting it with himself. And I'm like, Marcus,
Kids are amazing.
Yeah, I'm like, for a sophomore, this is insane. Like, I don't think I can do this, right? But then that gives me the confidence to put it in and moments like that and experiences like that don't happen if you're just, I'm back here just writing
you're just a name on the paper. You know the kids, you have the relationship with them, and so that totally adds to what you're able to bring to the writing.
Yes.
And I think that's super cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
And not just the writing, but just the experience. Like the music is kind of like the vessel for that we use for like educating the child on how to like handle the adversity they're going to handle as an adult or as a professional or in college, in lessons that maybe we felt we didn't quite know as well. Like how to handle when stuff goes wrong, how to handle when this guy says he's going to do this thing for you and he doesn't do it for you, how to handle, kind of like being a good human, sure. Right? So there's a reward that comes through seeing some of these students at times go through some legitimate struggles, like sometimes in their life, right? And then being there to kind of help them overcome it, and then seeing where they end up afterwards. That is, I guess, worth taking the hit of not making it as much.
You can't put a price on that. It's just so it's
for us. It's not for everybody. Like I don't, dream job, yes, for Teen Islas, but that doesn't, again, just like Car Bomb's not for everybody, Bjork's not for everybody. If you're a young college guy coming up and you're looking at this and like, yeah, it's like hey man, from the time I was 14, I was writing music. Yeah. Like I did not have like a choice. Like I would be writing music, like these, it wasn't like, I'm going to get my retirement by writing a book for middle school snare solos. Yeah. Right? It's like, I need to write middle school snare solos. I am compelled. I have no other option. Right. And you see this sometimes, guys, they get older and they had a dream of performing and they're like, oh man, there's not any gigs to like play marimba perfect. I guess I'll teach. Yeah. But they never really wanted to be teaching, right? And so then a couple years in that, that's not
muddying the waters a little bit.
Maybe all right. And then they go and it's like, but they were never really right, and then there's, so you just gotta be real honest with yourself, I think, as you're getting into this, and take a moment to be honest with yourself and try to set a trajectory. Like, where am I going to be in 5 years? Where do I want to be? And then, like, how do I get there? Sometimes you're just worried about, like, when's the next Zelda drop? All right,
yes. We can talk about Zelda, because it's a different animal than the first one, let me tell you. I've seen some insane videos, and I'm like, I don't know when I'm ever going to be able to build that. That is crazy. But this is perfect, because this is all going where I really wanted this conversation with both of y'all to go. And it's your unique perspective, writing for and teaching this program. But I do want to back it up real quick and shout out Annie Chernow, because I have a great relationship with her too. She was my section leader at Cadets my first year there, and she showed me the same compassion and grace, someone coming in from a different drum corps and being on the marimba line with her. And so what you're saying about her, opening, welcoming you guys with open arms and just saying, look, you're obviously, doing great stuff. Like, let's just keep it going. Like, I experienced that with her too. So I wanted to make sure I gave her a shout out, because she's an awesome human being.
It checks out. The story checks out.
It checks out. Yes. We got some fact checkers out here, and they're all making sure everything that we're saying is legit. So, but yeah, she's awesome. And obviously Mr. Wynn is great. And you guys have had some good years with him now. And he was someone who was the assistant director, right? And then moved into the head director role. And so that's cool that you guys keep that consistency with him. So we just got into, Doug, you were talking about, y'all's specific setup at Coppell. You mentioned that you guys are both kind of there full time now and teaching lessons, and obviously super involved with the writing and the teaching of the group. Is that an accurate explanation of what you're doing? So you guys are both at Coppell High School every single day, all of the week, or 4 days a week?
4 days a week, yeah.
Nice, cool. And can you give us an estimate of like kind of how many lesson students you each have, or?
I think probably the last couple years, roughly around 35, maybe 40 lesson students at the most.
Cool.
Each.
And that's from 6 to 12?
6 to 12, yep.
Nice.
And along with that, we will, in the fall, do drumline rehearsals, which happen every Wednesday during class and then after school. An occasional marching band rehearsal. I think Doug was doing a different day for marching band rehearsal. And then, of course, camps and drumline contests. We're there for that too. And then in the spring, it's mostly lessons, but an occasional percussion ensemble. Like for this year's percussion concert, they played one of my pieces and they played one of Doug's pieces. And so we were kind of coaching those with the kids on a weekly basis. But that's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm. Really cool setup. Yeah. The next question I kind of have for you guys is just like, as you've written more books together, how is your writing process? What does your writing process look like with each other, and how has it kind of evolved, over the years? Using Coppell as like a springboard, an example.
He really likes it when I write first, and I really like it when he writes first.
Nice. Yes.
So it's a no-go situation.
Guess which one happens more often.
Yeah.
It mostly happens because you're much faster than I am. But in terms of like the drumline show, the creation of the drumline show, I will begin by kind of doing a rough sketch of the pacing of everything and kind of fill some gaps in, but not super defined, and then I'll pass it to him, and we'll be discussing things along the way, of course.
Yeah.
I'll pass it to him, and he'll kind of write some things, and I'll come back and fill out the gaps or make adjustments to the things that he's written. But when it comes to the marching band material, usually he's getting the drum parts ahead of me, and then I'll get them from him and be able to kind of see what I have on top of what he's already got, which is like really useful because there's already rhythms there, there's already dynamics there, the phrasing is already kind of established, especially for things like breaks, so it makes my job on that end a lot easier.
Yeah, I heard an interview with Dr. Ian Moyer one time, and he kind of said the same thing, that Colin writes about 80% of the beats first. When it is a full ensemble moment, battery and front ensemble, I remember him saying that, most of the time it's battery, which is interesting because when we write, Shannon, I usually do all the writing first, but that's maybe because I'm just a go-getter and I'm just like, I just get it all in there. And
Yeah, you just start writing stuff. So
I don't know. We have a lot of unspoken rules between us. We got a lot to hash out.
There's going to be a whole therapy session after all this.
Yeah.
So I got a question for you, Mr. Jacobs, if I can.
of
I don't know
course.
if I can hijack this whole
please,
thing.
please. I'm gonna take a break.
When you do your battery writing, do you find that you like always start with the snare voice and then flesh it out, or you start with the bass voice, or is it kind of depends on the phrase, or this
I think
and that?
it kind of depends on the phrase.
Are you a fingers guy, or are you like a sticks and pad guy, or what?
Mostly, it's rare that I get the sticks out. If I have to get the sticks out, that means that phrase is probably going to be very challenging, and I'm like deciding, okay, I can't. How do I water this without? How do I do this? What I want without writing what I just thought of?
Yeah.
That's. If I do that, it's like, okay, this is what I want. How do I make it attainable, like without having to every one of my goatee hair turning gray? So if I do that, then we're probably we're in the weeds at that point. But generally, I think it's kind of mostly. So I'll listen through something, and then I'll like, oh, that's a bass moment. Oh, that's a quad part. Oh, that's a snare part. Oh, this is a tootie. Oh, that's a snare. And then I go through and I start. I'll like maybe write. And funny story about this. One of our indoor charts. I sent Riley a version of and it was really like 2 snare chord notes, or 3 measures of rest.
It sounded like it was glitching. It was like ba-ba, do-ga-do-ga-do-ga. And I showed it to him. I was like, Shannon, I trust you. I have a lot of trust in you, but this is what you sent me. I just want to make sure that this is. And he's like, oh, no. I was just like sketching it out.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
file,
Yeah. So I do that quite a bit. And then like for like big 2D moments, I snare first, and then tonally down from there.
Yeah.
Copy,
Cool.
paste, copy, paste.
Right. Copy paste. Drum 2, drum 1, crossover this way, and on drum 4. Yeah. Copy paste. Down the drums, up the drums. Yeah. Yep. That's an interesting question. Yeah. I think that's how I do it. I don't know that I think about it. It's not a cognizant thing anymore. It's just I've done it. Sometimes it's nice to be asked that question just to go, oh yeah, because I kind of do that. How about you?
Yeah. What's your thoughts on that, Doug?
Oh man, like this podcast ain't long enough. I'm sorry. We're not going to be able, because early in the process it was much more instinctual. I think really where it was where I hadn't put as much thought into like why I'm making the decisions I'm making. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But now I've put a lot of time and thought into it, and I think maybe a big part of that has come from writing for more and more groups of varying levels, right?
Sure.
And I would like to think that's one of the advantages of when we write beats for people is that we've taught at all levels, right? And we've seen inside, and we still continue like we are teaching now, right?
Yeah.
And so we've been in those programs where it's like, you're in the lot at Plano Drumline competition at the end of September, and they still don't have their closer.
Yeah.
Right? Or I remember with Mr. Bingman early on, before we were, like, hey, we're not using timpani and parts show up with timpani, or like parts are written for octaves that don't exist on this, or whatever, and it's like, so we purposely limit the number of groups because it's more, again, it's not about the paycheck. It's about like if we are not in the room and you're talking to anyone we write for, we hope that they are going, hey man, we get our stuff, it's high quality. You know, we have a questionnaire, obviously, we send out every year about what are the strengths of your program, weaknesses, what, like, I'm on the phone, I've been on the phone with 4 different percussion directors this week. You know, you say you got a strong, you know, sophomore on bass 2, does that mean they can split this at this tempo, right? Or you say you have this incoming quad or whatever, right? You know, because we know how hard the gig is, man. We want you, you're spending more time on this music than you are anything else the whole year, right? So for you and the students, it needs to kind of, you know, and so because of that, I guess, like, I don't kind of approach every group similarly. You know, some things that are similar, I would say, is it's funny. So many great people I know are like that, are like finger guys. Yeah. Like Jimmy was like that. You know, like somebody. I got these pipe band sticks. They weigh like as much as Miss Islas's pinky. You know, they're ridiculous. You know, and I got like these mouse pads. But I'm hacking stuff out like all the time, and like quad moments, like I'm on the floor driving my dog crazy, just hacking stuff out, you know. And I think it's not that I don't, you know or anything, but a big part of the way I try to write, maybe this comes from drum set, I don't know, maybe is the feel. Like if it feels comfortable to play, then it's probably going to be played better or more musical, right? You know, so like that aspect of it, but feel can be a little subjective, right? And thankfully a lot of programs we work with also use a lot of our kind of supplementary material. So, you know, I have a lot of guys, you know, like Tyler out at Tomball, like hits me, he's like, hey man, you can write anything from chapter 1 to chapter 6 in super hands. Nice. Hey, cool. I know exactly what to do. And, you know, I mean, that's clearly been one of the things that worked really well at Horn and, you know, and has worked really well at Coppell and whatnot, is like when you're teaching the students and they're playing your material, we could have another great battery front ensemble arrange for Coppell, but they're not going to sound quite as good because these kids know, like when they get this from Miss Islas or Mr. Bush, like that's exactly the interpretation they want on it. So
I think that's a really big point. You know, that's one thing I love about writing and teaching at Forney is like when I write something, I know they've already 9 times out of 10 they already know how to do it, or they've been exposed to the concepts to execute that phrase beforehand, before they even get it. Like, I know this kid can do that, you know, and that makes it really freeing to go, okay, cool. And then when I have those moments where I'm like, this is pretty hard, but I know this is a concept that I can teach, and you know, I do this. I don't know if you guys do this. I write something very pretty technical or pretty challenging or different. And as I'm writing it, I know exactly how I'm going to break it down and teach it step by step by step. And it's going to sound like this in March, and then in April, and then like I just see the entire process. And I am so in love with doing that. Yeah. And it goes to another point you guys are saying is like a well-written book that's thought out and done by professionals at a high level makes Riley or any percussion director's job so much easier, because then you're not dealing with oh wait, this is written for 4.5 octave vibe. What is going on here? Like you have those issues that are that maybe non-percussionists and or someone not taking their time with it that you run into, and then you're creating more problems, more headaches for people. We create headaches for our own.
Yeah, we sure do. Yeah, we sure do. But I think that's super just important. Like, I hear this a lot, like great arrangers and great composers, like, and maybe you don't have to be this, nitpicky, or maybe you guys are, but it's like when I hand the music over to you, like, you should not really have any questions. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like the stickings need to be there.
Yeah.
Like, you shouldn't have a question on how am I gonna do this permutation, or how should this be voiced a certain way? What's the balance here? Like, have as many of those things solved when you pass the music out.
Yeah, because it saves so much time.
Yeah.
It saves so much time. I mean, you'd be surprised on not having a sticking, even if you only have 3 marimba players there, how much that can really bog things down to check to make sure each of them has gotten the instruction of this is the double we're doing here.
Yeah.
Or, being aware of like having the dynamics in there really clearly defined. So you're not having to explain multiple times over and over again, like, oh no, that's piano. Like, all of those details just really end up saving you a lot of time in the long run, and mean that the kids can have, reach a higher potential by the end of the season.
Yeah,
so everybody's happier.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sitting here kind of thinking about another element to this that I'm learning about as I write for more groups and do it more, is like, I feel like there's like 3 categories. Not 3 categories of groups, but like 3 categories of things you can write. And like, I would say like the first category is like, when a school says, this is our ceiling. Like, we know already, like, please don't write anything harder than this. Like, we really want to focus on these things. And then there's this, like, well, I would say on the other side of that, it's like, I think both of our groups is like, we can pretty much write like anything we want, not anything, but like, we know our students really well enough. You guys know your students. And there's that relationship from 6th to 12th grade where it's like, we just want to throw, the kitchen sink at them, right? And see what happens. But then there's like this really gray area of, and we experience this in our program, but more for like different ones I'm learning about when I write for is like trying to figure out what can I do to push this group. Is there like what's the kind of the next level for them, and being wise enough or trying to gain the wisdom of like knowing when to do that, and knowing when to like not do that, I think is really a challenging part of the arranging business.
Absolutely, because you'll get 3 guys in a room and none of them will agree on what's challenging.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This guy will be like, yeah, 9-lit singles all day. It feels so good. It's easy. And the other guy will be like, it's literally impossible for a high school snare line of more than 2 people to play 9-lits clean. And they will both genuinely believe that to their core, right? So for me, over the years, it's become that communication. It's like, I need to like talk with you and really see like, that's part of the questionnaire. It's like, what are things you want me to avoid? What are things you want? But along those lines, something that a good friend of ours, Mr. Anderson, said a long time ago that helped free me up a lot, I guess, I thought, is that if the group is reaching out to you, there's probably something in your style and your writing that they admire and like, right? And so I would like to think like that most people can hear a group we've written for and identify pretty quickly, oh, that's Doug and Patricia. Like I remember driving to my nephew's like birthday party one day or something, you get a call from Mike Lemish at Argyle. And he's like, hey, man, did you write for this group? And yeah, I did. How'd you know? He's like, man, I'm at the contest right now, and they're playing Mars, Bring Her War, and I heard the big 5-lit,
Yeah.
And just by hearing that 5-lit, he knew, oh, Doug Bush wrote this.
Wow.
Was confident enough to call me, right? Yeah, exactly. So
Shannon's a big fan of 5-lits too. He's a huge fan.
I mean,
yes,
They're
sir.
pretty
Yes,
good.
sir.
they're pretty awesome.
Pretty useful.
Pretty amazing.
But one of the things that that has been tricky with writing for other groups is sometimes you'll get someone who has like a very clear limit of what they want, but sometimes you'll have people that say, oh, whatever you guys think.
Yeah.
You do good work,
Right,
like whatever you
right.
think.
Yeah. And it makes your job more challenging.
Yeah, and then it becomes like, well, okay, if we do whatever we want, then we will not be back next year.
We're gonna break the program.
Yeah, so then it becomes like a CSI kind of like, let me get online.
It's that meme where the ladies and all the different things are happening and in the air, the little equations and stuff.
Yes, and like looking up YouTube videos of previous years to see like, okay, what did they do last year? What are some things that they had in their book currently? And then having this really thought out questionnaire that we give to everyone to kind of guide them towards specific things that might be useful for us.
Yeah.
Those things combined really help in that situation.
Side note, Doug, what is your favorite 9-lit sticking?
We're saying on snare, like.
Sure, snare quads,
I don't know. It depends.
All left hands.
Yeah, again, it kind of depends on the phrase. But I like put it a 3-3 a lot, Bugga-da-digga-da-digga-da. I like that one a lot. Yeah, and I like the first 2 partials of a triplet into a paradiddle-diddle 9-lit. It's like da-da-da-da-da. Does that make sense?
I like that one. My favorite one. This is neither here nor there. But I like this slurred 9-step deal.
Oh yeah.
Boy, that always feels.
Yeah, we threw one of those in a couple of years ago. I had to break out the sticks for that one.
I love that.
It's so interesting, right? Because it's like
because it doesn't really become a 9-lit. It's because it's become this weird half note thing.
Yeah, which I found for us, like anytime I want that, I just write a 5-lit. Like,
yeah.
Because they're so much more comfortable with the 5-lit than, if that makes sense. Like,
that makes sense.
Which is, again, kind of another thing is it's like, I try to avoid like written dirt in terms of like, if I'm going to write that 9-lit thing, then anytime I'm wanting that, like I'm using that. I'm not going to write that and write the 5-lit.
And write, yeah, sure.
Right? Like if I'm wanting like da-da-da-da-da-da-da, it's either going to be triplets or it's going to be 5-lits.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to do both like at a high school level unless it is like
show. Like you're
yes,
keeping the
yeah.
same concept.
Because and this is another advantage that comes once you start to adjudicate.
Yeah.
I'm at the 40 Invitational. I see 40 bands. You guys are band 22.
Yeah.
How do I remember you guys, right? You know what I'm trying to say,
Yeah.
right? We can't all be Jeff Osdemore. I
Yeah.
wish, but I'm doing my best.
Yeah.
And so it's like in that one single read, what am I trying to say musically? And then what is going to set the kids and the educators up to be as successful as possible with that thing? That's something that I've always found a little interesting too, that I see some of these guys that the whole show and kind of like a big part of the solos and super hands and opening statement were like this too, and teaching other solos where like the whole thing is at like X level of difficulty, and then there's like one random phrase that's like way harder and involves like a 13/3 thing they saw Broken City do with left hand split shots or something, and it always sounds bad, and it's like, well, of course, what are we doing here?
There's no pedagogy leading to that.
Yes,
usually,
exactly.
Generally,
yeah. So.
Well, we've got to talk a lot about. I think we had a great, it's great hearing where you guys came from and a lot of your teaching philosophies, and now we've really kind of dived into the arranging and composing. So I think this is a great segue into watching one of the videos you guys worked on.
Yeah, sure.
Can you guys give us a little bit of an overview? Like, this is a drumline specific show, right? And this is, you guys are now our second guest because we had Ken and Wiley on, and we talked a lot about what they do with their drumline show. Can you just talk a little bit about like the philosophy of doing a separate drumline show and how you guys approach it, and then we'll check out some beats?
Yeah, we started doing a separate drumline show at Coppell. Was that 2015? 15 was the first year that we did it, which was the first year that I came over and taught at Coppell.
Cool.
We wrote the marching band show and the separate standstill drumline show. And the thinking was we want to be able to give the band directors exactly what they need from the percussion in the marching band show. Like, we want to be as supportive as possible while still giving the students an opportunity to be challenged and to play diverse music. Right, we have so much extended time with the kids from when drumline auditions start, that whole process, all the way through the summer, all the way through summer marching band, all the way through like finals at
percussion class,
whatever
specific percussion class during the year.
Yeah,
right?
and with the attention being drumline specific.
Yeah.
So it's like this is a perfect opportunity to like really drive home fundamentals and spend a lot of time developing technical and musical and awareness skills that sometimes with marching band we don't have the ability to go that far because of what the show needs from the percussion. So it does require a lot of extra time. It does require a lot of extra organization, but I think the kids and the parents and the staff understands the value of like the positives that come from it, and they outweigh the extra work that goes into making it happen.
Yeah.
So.
That makes a lot of sense. We are still in that world of, and I totally understand what you mean by giving the band what they want, because we are still in that zone of like trying to do what we want to do without getting in their way, and then sometimes we get in their way and we're like, sorry guys, we really just wanted that phrase to be in there. So but we've gotten better about that, I think. But this is the first year where we're still gonna do the first and third part of our show at a drumline, the drumline show, but we're gonna do a different ballad.
Nice.
Because the ballad we got for our band show is great for the band show, but we're like, we can push a little bit past this. So we're kind of diving into that just a little bit this year. So, but we always have a huge admiration for what you guys do and all the programs that do these specific drumline shows. So we're gonna watch 2021 first, and we're gonna do a little live react while we watch it, and then we'll sync everything up later. So we'll be talking, and then I want you guys to just jump in and just say, oh yeah, that kid was really good at that, so that's why we write that. Or any thoughts that you guys come to mind while we're watching it, you guys can just feel free to jump in.
Okay.
Cool. So here we go. This is Coppell High School 2021 Varsity Drumline Show, Birds Requiem.
So you guys usually take like a whole evening to do these productions at the end of the season, I imagine, yeah?
Yeah, it tends to, if possible, we like to do it the week before Lone Star, or like in that zone.
Yeah.
The recording of it is more valuable than a rehearsal, but the last couple years, there's been some complications. The COVID year, we had to do it like months after, and then this year we had to do it about a week after Lone Star.
Yeah.
But that must prepare them. It's almost a performance.
Oh, yeah.
You're doing a bunch of takes, I'm sure. And I was going to say this, Patricia, about this. going back to teaching your own specific group, like you knew those vibe players so well that you're like, we're just gonna start with vibes. These amazing vibe players.
And we can talk about it later, but they're fantastic players.
Yeah.
I always appreciate the absolute Doug Bush, Patricia Islas vibes of the Adidas pants.
Oh yeah.
Uniforms, absolutely not.
So did you write this first then, Patricia? And
Yeah.
Doug, you wrote over that? Okay.
Yeah, for the drumline show, she writes everything first.
Oh, cool. So we get the melodies and the harmonies worked out.
And then we'll go back and forth a lot in the process. Right?
Yeah.
You know.
Doug Bush bass lines. Everyone wants one.
The other thing I appreciate about this phrase from Patricia is like y'all's commitment to the piano patch. Like you just found a great piano patch, no fancy electronic, all this crazy stuff. It's like, that's it. And it sounds great and it fits with the vibe. I think a lot of people, we can talk about this after, is just want to know how you get the kids to commit to performing the way they do.
Doug, you always do such a cool job of adding all these ethnic things. And did you were you particularly interested in ethnomusicology in college?
Yeah, man. I think like a lot of guys, I went through my drum set stage, and then I went through my hand drum stage, and then I went through my MIDI fighter stage, and eventually ended up back. So yeah, you probably all those origins in drum set, like picking different sounds, from these great percussion guys over the years and trying to put them in.
Yeah, we have a lot of artifacts of those stages.
Artifacts.
Your guest bedroom is a storage closet.
Every room.
I like the diversity of the different cajones. Create different sounds. Nice.
Doug, you love those split flame drag passion.
Yes,
Split
yeah,
flame
I like
tap-
double stop stuff. Yep.
Yeah. The importance of clean bass drum unisons.
That sticks in there. Nice.
I love Sticks in.
I love Sticks in as well.
I know it's old school. Like, get it.
No, man.
Every year, my kids.
They're not taught a Sticks in until they make the varsity group.
Oh, wow.
It's like a rite of passage.
Wow. Okay, cool.
That's awesome.
That's interesting. And my kids are always like, "Can you do 6 in?" I was like, "You can do a 6 in and do it clean."
A little chromaticism there.
So guys, notice the snare line right now is pointing to the quads.
Yeah.
I've learned
Love that.
if you want if you want an adjudicator to check out the bases of the quads, the
Yeah.
snares put their 6 in and
point.
point at them, and then they will actually.
And then they'll go do
Why
it.
not? Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
That's for free, everybody.
That's
Doug
free
Bush,
advice.
That is
free
for free.
advice.
Point to the people they're supposed to listen to.
Yes. Otherwise, they will just listen to the snares.
Back on the cajones, providing that feel. Yeah, there's definitely
Shout
been
out
some.
triangle player.
Also,
yeah.
about to say, like, I can recall times when I've taken kids to the HEB drumline lot to watch you guys and be like, don't watch the marimbas, watch the rack player.
Yeah.
You know, and like watch the commitment there.
And this particular group, the third vibe player, on the end that started the trio at the beginning of the show, she didn't play vibes all 4 years. She played multiple instruments, but her sophomore year, she was in the top band. She was in the Wind Symphony as a percussionist, and also happened to be a rack player.
Wow. Some questions about that afterwards for sure. Woo! Yeah, the cohesion in this section is just so apparent. Nothing's getting in the way of the next thing. Whoever edited this video is very well aware of the opacity function. As someone who's been doing a lot of podcast video editing, I can appreciate the opacity that they implement. It works really well. It's super cool.
There you go, bass.
Nice electronics there to drive it.
Yeah.
Nice. Oh, the Rimshot. They did, shout out Rimshot, because they did one of the Dr. Zader videos that we had on
Yeah,
here.
that's Cameron Sather. He's actually a former student.
Okay, I had not seen that he had incorporated yet, because he's done a couple things for us way back, but that's cool that he has his little business set up there. Good for him.
Yeah, he went to Lake Highlands when Michelle Lebrecht Jimmy was there. Yeah. Great kid. Great drum set artist.
Oh, yeah, really great artist.
Toured nationally for sure. I don't know if internationally, but yeah, he's outstanding. So it's great to have him do the percussion videos.
Oh, it's really great
Knows
because
me.
he knows percussion, so he can line things up really well.
That's super
Right.
awesome.
Yeah.
How many takes did y'all do? Do you remember?
I feel like
Usually 4 or 5.
Yeah, maybe 4 or 5.
So you do one where people are kind of walking around and getting those views, and then you do a couple from back there. And then,
We'll typically do like an audio only take
Yeah.
to get a recording that way, and then one with a video of the front ensemble, someone moving around, and then of the battery.
cool.
That's awesome.
That's super
Yeah.
cool. So real quick, the question, I mean, I have several questions, but like you talked about the rack player from that girl who was on Vibes. Are the kids, in most programs there's like a hierarchy, right? They want to be a marimba eventually, or they want to be a xylophone. It doesn't seem like that's really the case for y'all. Explain what it's like, what the culture's like for you guys.
Yeah, it's really important for us that we're not just funneling all of the kids into the snare line or into the marimba line.
Yeah.
Because as people who have played multiple percussion instruments, we understand the value of different instruments and how certain attributes of what they play and how it feels to play it might go better with someone's specific temperament.
Yeah.
So we try to make it, it's really, I think, important to remind ourselves that as educators, what we say to the kids is not always that important as much as our actions.
Yeah.
Your actions are what the kids are going to pay attention to all the time. Sometimes they'll listen to your words, and when your words and your actions line up, even better.
Yeah.
Right? And so there are things like with that vibraphone section specifically, like we have a really strong vibe culture, and I think there's a number of factors to it. I mean, myself being a vibraphone player, the kids understand like I have a passion for it and a love for it.
Yeah.
But also making sure that there are students in every section that are excellent players. Like for example, that rack pearl, who there has been multiple years with Coppell where some of the best musicians in the program played vibraphone, even their senior year. We just had a student graduate a few years ago, Anna Judd, who is now going on for music education at BYU, and she's a phenomenal musician and composer.
Yeah.
And
Sophie won the North Texas Marimba.
Yeah, the PAS.
And she was our fourth vibe.
Yeah, she was our fourth vibe.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, having giving opportunity for kids to find a home and then allowing them to write in a way that will morph into whatever level that they want to achieve, I think also helps to just solidify the message of like everybody's important here, and we just want you to find a place where you can be successful, regardless of like what somebody thinks of a certain instrument.
Yeah. Super cool.
That's awesome.
And you said the same way in the battery as well?
How deep we want to go, guys.
You guys are our guests, so whatever.
If we want,
there's people that are excited to hear from you guys, and we all want to talk. I mean, we've had plenty of parking lot conversations, but there's people that want to hear it, man. So
hey, I will say the same thing that I literally say every fall of my life. At least once a week, I'm getting a call or a Facebook message or whatever. The bass thing. How do I get the bass culture? And this is it. But just very few people want to kind of commit to it. So,
sure.
So there's no like one, oh man, hey, if you do this, then you got them, right? So it's a bunch of things, right? But when I think of some of those things, to go back on something we said earlier about, I think, I never had the pleasure of studying with Tom Hannum. I got to talk with him a lot when Shannon brought him out to clinic the group for a couple of days, which was outstanding. But former students of his and friends of mine that went to UMass used to say, like, when he would give them music, he wanted it exactly like he said, like, that you have no questions. Everything is on the page and everything is taken care of. And funny, I do that with the snare and quad voice. I don't do that with the bass voice. I put the bass unisons, like I put the stickings, but a lot of the other ones, if it is like 2s, 3s, 4s, certain things, like I will leave the sticking off intentionally. Yeah. Because if you're going to develop this bass, most places, like there's no bass culture. It's like the kid is upset because they wanted to be on snare, and they ththought for sure they should have been on snare. And
their mom for sure. And
it's like, well, hey, Jeff, how much did you practice for the audition? Well, like 2 days before.
Yeah, 2 full days.
2 full days, right? And so then they're just poopy pants to be there. So you have to create this culture inside there. I get in with that baseline, and any culture, any program, Patricia, I feel like you're looking at 5 years. It's like a 5-year commitment, to kind of get it, like whether it's the whole thing or the baseline or whatever, it doesn't matter. But step one, like you have to identify like a smart, capable kid that could play snare, it doesn't matter, but their personality. It's like maybe they don't have the best like athletic hands. Maybe they're not grading book reports, but maybe they're like valedictorian or something, right? You know what I mean? And someone that has that, and you have to be willing to commit to putting them there. Then you have to give them music that showcases that. Yes. Like, which on bass with one strong player you can do very easily by giving them the splits and the things like that, or if they're on one of the top 2 drums, doubling some of the stuff, right? Then you come in with the bass line and you establish very early, like, if you walked into the Coppell bass line right now and you said, okay, hey, what's your guys' goal when you bring your sticks in? They would look at you and say, do it better than the snares. What's your goal when it comes to memorizing the music? Better than the snares. Yeah. When the band director, when Miss Ellsworth says reset, who's the first section back? The bass line. Every time. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I don't need fourth bass to grid book reports better than the snare line. Yeah. But if you can give them these things that they can do, and then when they do it, like, oh man, when you guys show up and you guys get set faster than the rest of the line, and Mr. Wynn sees that, right? And so then at lunch, hey, Mr. Wynn, be on lookout for, right? And then we get set full ensemble. Yo, gut, snares, quads, look at the basses. You see how quick they got set? You see how none of them moved when right? Yeah. And then they start getting these wins. Meanwhile, Mr. Bush is back there. It's a very, military. I read a lot of Jocko. I read a lot of Goggins. Nice. Yeah. I read a lot of, there's a lot of like, the Navy guy wants to beat the Army guy. The Army guy wants to beat the Air Force guy. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's like little brother thing. Like no one's going to pick. I can pick on my little brother. Yeah. But you can't do nothing to my little brother. Right. He's my brother, right? Yeah. So you're careful to kind of build that like, hey, it's competitive internally, but at the end of the day, it's this. Together. And then what happens? Iron sharpens iron, right? Steel sharpens steel. Is like they get better at it. Mm-hmm. Then the other groups don't want to get left behind, so they get better at it. And it becomes this virtuous cycle. And so for me, at a very, very, very small level, this is a very Doug Bush, but leaving some of those things I've found in my career, the guys that go in and write like literally everything. Like there needs to be an element of like, okay, hey, I'm teaching you the process. When you see a 2, this is a Mr. Bush, this is a big one. I see these guys that will write like a 3s run. Let's say I'm drum 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then there's a unison on the downbeat, and they just leave drum 4 out. Like no drum 4, right? You know what 3 or 4 drum, a lot of guys do this. I've taught groups to DCI Sanford winning writers, do this. Great, awesome, if that's what you want to do. Drum 4 is like of your unison sound, the second, like, right? Or whatever, right? All I do is I just make the release with a left.
Yeah.
That's it. And now you're not missing the voice, and the kid's doing it. So there's all these like little methods that I teach the kids early on, and then I'm not going to hold your hand. And I'm going to key you on it when you're not doing it. Because if we are going to be better than the snares or whatever, then this is how you prove it, right? And so that is a little bit of the process. And I found these guys that try to, they're not comfortable with it. Oh no, dog, I got to go in and write all the bass stuff. And I'm thinking, okay, it's your program, man. You do, like, for sure. But these are methods that haven't just worked for me at Coppell. They've like worked for me everywhere, right? You know what I'm trying to say. So, but at the end of the day, I do kind of, it's everything that Patricia was just saying. It's kind of cornerstone of Coppell. Like we try to identify the right kids for the right instruments, for the right personality, and then, I'm very mindful of like how many snare comments I've given versus how many quad versus how many bass. I've been with guys a lot that it's just like for every 15 snare comments, maybe 1 quad comment, and definitely no bass comment. And it's like, well, why do you think these guys aren't practicing? What would you if you were on the line, right? Like, no, everybody has a valued role, and we're making sure that we're kind of, it's one of the things that makes guys like, Bingaman such great educators, and Zach Shearer and Jimmy Rebecca, they're not like that. They're, if you're the rack player and you're early, like you're there, right? So. Sorry, I'm probably going too deep here.
That's wonderful. It's great stuff.
Opens up more questions. Let's pause real quick so we can make sure we get we don't cut anything, and then we'll keep going. Awesome. So we're talking about, Doug sharing a lot of great insight on his baseline culture, but also kind of, which kind of leads into some other things about your drumline culture. I think it's very similar. Shannon, you have a very unique approach to the battery that I think you share a lot of things with Doug. Will you kind of share a little bit about how you approach, teaching battery and how you make that culture what it is?
It's crazy. We haven't talked about this before, but like the Jocko stuff and the military training. I totally implement that stuff at a lesser degree, with my battery. We at Forney, we have a vigorous like summer band, like. Our July week, I run them. We're very physical. Like I'm a big believer that, hey, the drums are heavy. So if you can't wear that drum and manhandle that drum and be really comfortable and confident with it, you're probably not gonna play very well. So we do a lot of physical activity, and I kind of beat them up a little bit psychologically. It's like, hey, listen, it's okay to like struggle with your friend because that struggle builds a bond, and they're very competitive with each other. The battery is very. They're very big personalities. Like my battery is the personality central. Like there's some confident people in that battery, and I feed that. Kind of like Steve Carroll at USC. Like he's that kind of coach where he kind of wants his players to be a little bit confident, a little bit cocky about it, and I feed that to the battery. Like, let's be confident. We are great. We are. You're going to be fantastic. We're going to be great. We're going to put in the hard work and to do what it takes to be amazing. And then they're very competitive within their section and then against each other. Right? It's always like snares versus quads versus basses. Like who's going to get there first? Who's going to get the music memorized first? All right, cool. And I reward that. Oh, bass did it best. Good job. Basses, take a break. Right, snares, try it again, or whatever. We do that a lot. We self-criticize and criticize each other for a couple of reasons. Mostly for for them to be able to identify what's correct and not correct. Like I want the bass line to hear, hey, the snares that rolls bad. And the snares that go back, ooh, that bass unison was really rough, right? And then they're listening at a higher level, not only to their section but to the whole ensemble, and that just brings about a different level. But I love that you're implementing those things. I tell the guys, I'm like, listen, batteries, it's tough. Every section in a band, right, has its own unique challenges, and our challenges in the battery are like the rhythms are incredibly complex. Like there's not a lot of space to be really great on this five-foot roll and snare drum. Like the margin for error is very, very minimal. And then on top of that, you got to wear that 45-pound drum, and you got to make it to the 40-yard line. 8 counts, go. So it's like it's really important to have all those things kind of in alignment, and it takes a certain degree of like tenacity to be able to do that on a day in and day out basis. And I think it's important that we train that, like from the word go. Like, you want this battery? Okay, here's your packet. All right, you're 8th grader. Do you know these rhythms? Can you do this? Can you mark time to this? We're always going to mark time. We're going to wear the drums as much as possible, and here we go. And so we just kind of make that a part of our culture from the very, very beginning. And now I don't feel like I even have to really do anything. I've been here so long; it's so set. I remember like in 07 getting here, very in the battery like. A flam was a foreign concept,
And oh yeah, man! Like setting the carriers up, like showing up with the same sticks, showing up with covers on the drums, right? It's a foreign concept.
All those things come so far. I remember telling them way back then, like, man, my goal is to get you guys trained well enough so I can come to rehearsal, sip lemonade, and it's going to get great.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you can do it. It takes a long time, and it takes, like you said, those special kids that they're a little bit, that they really, really want to do bass line. I remember the first kid who was like, okay, I want to be great. I want to be bass. I want to go audition for drum corps at bass. I want to be a great bass. And then since then, it's never been a problem. There's a great bass culture here, and there's a great snare culture and great quad culture. I think quads took the longest for us. But those guys, they went out and like really dug into it, and then they like auditioned for drum corps and they go back and they go, man, bass is my home and it's where I'm at. And then they foster that love by their peers. And then, boy, I don't have to do anything. I just sit back and it kind of takes care of itself.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were speaking about building the culture so that you give opportunities for the kids to be more independent. So it's easier on the educators' end. They don't have to take care of everything or even teach everything.
Yeah.
One of the techniques that we have developed that maybe even John Bingaman spoke about a little bit is asking a lot of questions in rehearsal.
I ask so many questions.
And at any level, I mean, it's not just the drum line or the front ensemble, but even in teaching the 6th grade class or the middle school class. And there's so many benefits to that. Yeah. One being that they start to identify be able to identify problems on their own. You don't have to point them out. And then they can start to contemplate, like, what are possible solutions to these problems?
Yeah.
And you, as the person in charge of the conversation, get to steer it towards what you're aiming for, what the goal is of the group, or even more specifically to the student, because you might have, in the front ensemble, we have often an array of talent and skills and abilities. And so you might have one kid that maybe just jumped in on the front ensemble. Maybe they're a double reed player and hasn't played percussion very long, and they don't know a lot about this. But they want to feel like they're successful as well. So you can target specific questions towards them at their level, and they can feel like they're contributing. Yeah. I love the effect of, like, okay, Sophie, come over here. You're the end vibe. I want you to come over here and watch the marimbas play this. Tell me what dynamic they're playing. Yeah. Right? And sometimes those comments, not sometimes, most of the time, those comments are way more valuable from their peers than they are from you.
Absolutely.
And they will stick so much more when it comes from someone their age or younger. Yeah. That's also a really useful technique is when you have, like, maybe an upperclassman that's a little bit too big for their pants. And they think they got it figured out, but they clearly don't.
Yeah.
Having a freshman come in who, is just figuring things out and everything's overwhelming, call them on something. Yeah. That will humble them instantly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But it's one of those tools that really allows you to kind of develop that culture of them being able to take care of more things and being more independent so that you can be in rehearsal. I mean, I've had rehearsals at Coppell where I say, okay, what happens? Being as broad as that and getting some very valuable feedback. Okay, well, how do you fix it? Or how does so-and-so need to fix that? And they kind of take care of it for themselves.
They take care of themselves, yeah. 2 points to that. One thing that I've gotten a lot better at, though, although I've done this. Like I was like being, I was talking about this, like I used to be like, okay, I'm going to tune every lug. That's my job. I'm going to do it all the time. And boy, I put the past 2 years I've had this great section leaders, and I'm like, you know what? Here's your bag. Here's a set of Allen wrenches. Here's a drum key. Here's this. If something's broke, y'all are in charge. You don't show up to my rehearsal with your section being, out of shape. And it's worked. It's taken so much. I show up in the quality show. I'm like, dude, sweet. Snares sound pretty solid. Bass, like, cool. I'll touch them up on contests and all that stuff. But other than that, like, drum maintenance is like, I'm like getting away from that. I don't have to do that. It's freeing up a lot of time. And then the other point of that, like, my favorite question, I've been asked this probably the past 3 or 4 years. From beginners up to the high school group is like, what's the difference between a professional musician and an amateur musician? The professional gets paid. No. No. The only difference is an amateur needs someone to come in and fix their problems. Professional musicians, they have the same problems. You can go ask, Tim Guinness or anybody. They have problems, but no one needs to come tell them, hey, that tempo is out of tune. Like, or that was a little sharp, or hey, that sticking's like, oh, no, I'll fix it. No, that's how I fix it. And they have that wealth of knowledge to start to diagnose, self-diagnose, and then apply a solution. And we spend so much time in the summer months of, like, I purposely, like, we just find problems. Let's do this because it's hard. It's going bad. Okay, listen, this is because this left hand likes to come in early when you have a diddle after an accent. Guess what? It's going to happen here in the music. Every time it's bad, I want you to listen for if that's the problem. 9 times out of 10, it is. And if you already know that, you're armed with so much knowledge and so much danger to start. Okay, I know, I see it. There it is, right? And then my sectioners, they've been, juniors and seniors. They've heard that enough. They start knowing, hey, there's a diddle here. It's going to come in early, right? And man, it saves you a lot of time. So a lot of headache, a lot of issues. So.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of discipline and patience to give a student a problem that they can really solve, even if they don't want to.
Yeah.
And then you not to jump in and immediately after a moment being like, okay, this is how you solve it, because you think it's efficient.
Yeah.
It really in the long run isn't.
No.
And a lot of the time they're going to understand it more deeply if they have to go through the process of understanding how to solve that problem on their own. We were listening to your podcast with Dr. Zader the other day, and I really love the moment he was talking about studying with Keiko Wabe.
Yeah.
And he's, learning all these enriching things about music, and then he goes to ask her questions about technique.
Right.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh no, I'm not gonna help you with that.
Yeah.
Go figure it out."
Go figure it out. Yeah.
And that probably was the best thing for him because he was totally capable at the time to
Yeah.
improve his technique, and that's probably exactly what he needed to hear.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of people that instantly want to jump in and like solve the kids' problems, but giving them a little bit of room to solve it on their own is ultimately going to make your job easier and give
make
you the
them a better
ability to stay
musician.
longer and be a better musician.
Yeah.
And apply it to other things in life too.
Absolutely.
I think that's where we're going with that. So kind of related, but not, but I'm going to tie it in really well, is because my question for you, Patricia, is, I think a lot of front ensemble educators see your group and see the Coppell front ensemble and think, how do I get my kids to do that, And I would bet that you don't go to every rehearsal and nag on them to perform more. I would bet money that they just kind of, at this point, I'm not saying maybe at a certain point you're like, okay, maybe you play something for them, but where they're at now, I mean, it seems like it's something that's built in, Can you explain how we got there?
Absolutely. It's definitely something that doesn't happen overnight. But a big part of what we talk about at Coppell with all the musicians is not just how to make good music, but music is a language. It's about communicating.
Yeah.
It's about feeling things. It's about experiencing things. And so we get at a lot of what is this music trying to express?
Yeah.
And it could be something as broad as like, well, what is just the general vibe here? Or it could be like, if they can't come up with anything, like, okay, if this is a soundtrack to a movie that you're watching or a TV show that you're watching, like, what's happening in the scene?
I love stories.
Who is
Yeah.
it about, right? What are they going through? What are
Yeah.
they experiencing? And so they have a broader perspective about what the meaning of the music is. And then we can go into the details of like, okay, how do you move in a way that expresses that?
Yeah.
One of the techniques that I haven't had to do with Coppell for a while because it is so now ingrained in the system and in the culture, but one that I really like doing with young groups that don't really know how to move is I will show videos of performers, preferably performers that are not percussionists and not in like the pageantry arts because so much of that is choreographed, but performers like
Cellist or
one I really like to use is Esperanza Spalding, this video of her performing for Obama. And I will show them the video and I'll hit mute on the sound. So we'll watch the video and then I'll ask questions about, okay, what did you see? How did she move? What did you notice about her movement? Like, what was she doing with her head? And like comment about they often get comments about what her facial expressions are or the way she moved her body or shifted her weight. And with the sound not on, you can more clearly pay attention to those details.
Yeah.
And then, okay, well, what do you think the song is about? What is she singing about here?
Mm-hmm.
What does it feel like? And they always nail it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then
100% nails. Yeah, every time.
And then we listen back, and it's like, yeah, you were right. Of course
You
you're
were right, yeah.
Yeah. Because these musicians, it's not something that was trained by someone else or someone else's style. It just came in organically.
Yeah.
Right? They're hearing the music, they're feeling music a certain way, and so their body is responding to that in a way that works for them, personally for them. And so at Coppell, I try to express to the students that it is important that we all hear the music with the same intent, but how you move can be a little bit unique.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And it might not be visually as clean.
Sure.
But it's going to mean that you can do your thing more sincerely.
And it's just going to play back into the musical clarity and the ensemble skills and the listening and at this point we're at a point now where it's like no one is. We go to a drumline contest or you go to a marching band contest, like no one's really seeing if your movements are together. Now, if you do like a sticks down or whatever, or a sticks in or something like that, we need that to be clean. But the fact that you have so many students, all of your students, I mean, you don't settle for less than 100%, doing something, that is what it is. That is, it speaks for itself. So I think that's really cool. And I think like a lot of people, myself included, are hesitant to be like, I want to stop and show a video, but I just got to learn that one more scale. I got to do one more thing. But what you're talking about, like taking the time to do that will push the group
it does, and
way
it
farther.
affects the dynamics as well. Something I realized the more opportunities I had to kind of build groups into that style is that you have to know where the phrase is going. You have to know what's piano, what's pianissimo, what's forte, and the differences between the different dynamics. Like one forte might be intense, one might be very lush and very full.
Yeah.
To be able to know how to move to it.
Yeah.
Right? And so when they've made that decision, okay, like my head needs to move this way, or I need to lean this direction, or my arm can come up this way, then they're putting that into what they're playing too, so it instantly sounds levels more mature.
Yeah.
Then I just need to play at this height, and I need to use this velocity, and I need to move to this note at a certain time.
Yeah.
So it enriches the musical experience not only for the players, of course, but also for the audience, because they feel what the composer, the arranger, what the intent was.
A little bit more. Cool.
One thing that's cool, listening to you guys talk, and we've known each other for a long time. Like, you guys are both great communicators. Speak very well, and you're able to articulate really complex ideas to both colleagues and students. And I love how this is kind of bringing a light to how you guys think about music as a language. And then it then reflects in your students playing the way they're communicating, not only with musical, but with nonverbal communication. Like, I love how all those things kind of play together, and then kind of just a reflection of you guys' teaching and your beings and individual. So that's cool.
Very nice of you to say.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jacobs.
So all this talk about, your kids and your program and your philosophies, let's watch some more beats.
Sounds
so
good.
Can you guys preface this next video that you sent me, Doug? So this is just the next year's,
yes,
right?
So this
the
was this year's show, Neon Dystopia. As Ms. Islas alluded to earlier, one of the advantages of this process is it gives an opportunity to expose the students to a lot of different styles of music, not just to what they're feeling in the marching band show. And the longer I've done the activity, the less, unfortunately, maybe the less the music has even become the priority in the marching band show. As more and more program coordinators and design elements come in, the more it's like, hey, the show is about spatulas. So we're gonna use any song with the word spatula in it, right?
Nice.
And you have to somehow make it musically cohesive. Or we're gonna take like Beyonce and Tchaikovsky and put them together. Okay. When I was a kid, I liked ice cream and pizza, but I didn't. Okay, well, whatever, right? So this gives us a chance to kind of like get to purity of it and expose the music. And so last year's show, the first one we watched, I guess, for 2 years, we had been invited to go to PASIC.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we weren't able to attend, but that was the idea. The performance was to close with that. So the show was written for like a PASIC audience. It was written like the one that we just heard, rather, Birds Requiem, was written for fellow percussionists. Yeah. Perhaps at a collegiate level that are coming to see, a group like Forney or Coppell play their percussion concert, and like that was going to be our big, so that kind of level of, sophistication and artistry, you might say,
for
right?
Sure.
So like
I would say there's no might. I would definitely say it's sophisticated and artistic.
So then this year's show, the one we're about to watch, Neon Dystopia, we wanted to go a very different direction. We wanted to, let's come out the gate swinging. Like, let's just be like real aggressive and upfront. And the idea was this kind of like electronic stuff. Like the openers from this French artist Algorithm, the Algorithm that I really really like. It's this pseudo, like Miss Islas was talking about, Aphex Twin and Square Pusher. I think it was called IDB, Intelligent Drum and Bass, which even the artists in Intelligent Drum and were like, this is the worst genre title ever. There's nothing intelligent, but it's just a little bit more sophisticated than your typical like jungle or house or whatever type stuff. There's like more going on. So he kind of blends that with metal, and we use that for the opener. There's a show called Arcane on Netflix that we loved, and there's a beautiful song by Sting and Ray Chin, who's a violinist, that we used for the ballad that was we loved from that show. And it was one of those things, the second you heard it, you're like, you want to hear Patricia do an arrangement of this, right? And then kind of unique for this one we're about to watch, the closer, was like a Mr. Bush original. Like this is a tune I wrote, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I've never kind of really released in the public or whatnot, but I've always held on to, and I always liked it, and we couldn't figure out the closer, and eventually Patricia was like, we need to use this tune. Like, okay, so that there's a new level of kind of excitement of like hearing Patricia arrange like something that I had originally written with no thought of drumline. I mean, it was all electronic, right? You know, and then see that kind of come to life. And I feel like that kind of sets us up for the show, to check it out.
Yeah, cool. Let's check it out.
So we're thinking very cyberpunk, like Blade Runner type vibes, Matrix, stuff like that,
So this is all just a track?
Yeah, I kind of made this to try to simulate a cityscape.
Yeah, you weren't kidding, coming out strong. Long roll. Appreciate the stick tape matching the uniform. I love how you give the vibes the opportunity to have the melody, going back to what we talked about. Shannon.
I love it.
There's more to come.
If you like that one.
Patricia, I meant to ask you this. Do you do a lot of the electronic design, or do you have someone else do it? Jeff Scheffel?
Scheffel.
Yep.
Jeff Scheffel does our design.
Awesome guy. Shout out there.
Shout out Jeff,
He did for this show and also for Drag
For the one before. Cool.
Nice.
Gives them the bottom bass is some love there. Cool tempo change.
Yeah, Bottom actually had the ups on that split vibe. He's marching Bottom for Mandarins this summer.
Nice.
That's awesome.
But that's a great example of a kid that when he came in as a freshman wanted to be a quad drummer and was like in the junior varsity line, and then he saw a strong bottom bass drummer before him that kind of, and he just grew into it and took ownership of being like, I am the,
I'm bottom
bass.
Yeah. Went on to be one of the greatest students I've ever had.
Nice.
That's awesome. It's almost like sometimes I listen to your riding Patricia, and I think you almost like ride it in one staff, and then you just take. So it kind of sounds
it feels like
sometimes.
that. It's more like creating a painting. Like I have an outline of like what I want the image to be, but then I'm utilizing all these different colors. Like the low end of the marimba has a specific color, and then the high end, and then the vibraphone of the metals.
Yeah.
Just kind of moving it around.
It's super cool.
Thank you.
You're pretty familiar with the hairpin tool on your music notation.
Oh yeah, all over the place.
I see so many groups doing this, the China cymbal on the left and the suspended cymbal on the right. I might try that.
This is the Doug Bush show.
You have merely glimpsed the edge of the abyss, but it is enough to trigger
This sound sample comes from Darkest Dungeon, I think. It's a video game.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, the narrator is so good.
Nice.
And we just wanted to set a different tone for going into the closer.
Cool.
Oh yes, Doug Bush original music. Yes, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
That's what he
meant.
meant.
The sound sample.
Had a little moment for the xylophone there. The greens. Chromatic runs are so useful,
They are.
especially if you haven't had one in a while. You're like, chromatic run. Oh my goodness. Insane. I just love how every measure, the feel is in a different part of the measure. Sometimes it's one and, sometimes it's and. It's just always changing. I like the cymbal colors in that section too. Y'all are good at that.
I like what the top bass has.
That's cool.
So we were talking earlier about car bomb.
Yeah.
This whole movement, really a lot of parts of the show, but in particular this movement, with the front ensemble writing, I used a lot of techniques that I've kind of stolen or inspired by from the genre of metal.
Yeah.
And this particular moment was one that we wanted to include in the show somewhere from a car bomb song that was just
nice.
like so cool.
Nice.
And it took a little while to figure out where it needed to go, but after the breaks, it seemed like the perfect opportunity because it was so big. and epic.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Look at the concert crashes out there.
Yes.
Nice.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I just love that it's so different than the show even one year before. You know, you can do a couple of similar things with tips and tricks, but like just the vibe you guys created with that was just completely different than the bird show, you know,
Thank you.
for lack of a better word. So that's really awesome. And if I'm remembering watching that over, y'all took that to the Dripping Springs Drumline contest and did fairly well, if I recall. So that's cool that you guys said, you know what, we've kind of been doing the North Texas thing. Let's like take our show on the road a little bit and go to a different part of the state. So was that a cool experience for your kids to go?
It was an awesome experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, that competition was run really well. Everyone down in Austin, although maybe they were glad to see us go. Yeah. Were very kind and very nice when we ran into them. It was a great experience for the kids because it's early in the season and they don't have the marching band stuff happening.
Right.
It's kind of our first contest that we go to. So there's already a lot of excitement for those first contests, but this one just amped it up a little bit because we're leaving town and it adds some more importance to it, which just gives us another opportunity to lean even harder in the like mental game and how do you approach this? How do you stay calm? Like what is your goal? What is our purpose here?
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it was fantastic for all of us.
And I grew up in the Austin area. I went to Round Rock High School, so I knew those programs really well. And now living in North Texas, like there's just so many good groups up here. And I think one thing I missed out on is, you know, every high school kid is just in their own little bubble, but like not really having a knowledge of all the amazing groups. And we knew, you know, Marcus and Coppell was kind of a little bit after. I guess it was towards the time I was graduating, maybe a little bit after it was really coming up and becoming a strong program. But, you know, it's just cool that you guys got to go down there because I bet a lot of kids are like, wow, there's like other really great drum lines in the state of Texas, not just in Austin. So that's really cool that you guys did that. Well, and do you have anything else you want to say about the video or anything else before we move on to the book stuff?
I have a question. It's a little bit left. You've been alluding to it, and it's apparent to me that as you guys are teaching students, you're very cognizant that you're mentors, and that what we do and the vehicle with which we do it lends itself to teaching a lot of life lessons that maybe, and I'm in this boat, so maybe this resonates with you, that I wish I was taught when I was that age. And because I missed that, I'm really trying to give that to my students. Like I want you to know that, you know, this is how you can handle that adversity, and this is how, you know, this mental tenacity will help you not to just play this role clean when it's the bright lights are on, but when things get difficult in college and they're in other things. It seems like that's a really at the forefront of your minds when you're dealing with your students and using music education as a vehicle. Is that something you guys are thinking about, talking about? You know, just expound upon that. I see your faces light up when I ask the question. I know it's important to you, so I just want to go there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, since I was in high school, a really long time ago, I've been in this area my whole life, and so I've been able to witness firsthand the progress in the music education and percussion education specifically, like things that I was struggling to figure out as a student in high school, as a really good student in high school, my freshman in high school can handle. Like in 2019, we played Marimba Spiritual for our drumline show, and that was a piece that's really important to me that I fought through as a high school senior. It was way harder than I should have handled, but I'm better because of it, right? And you know, there are freshmen in the group that are playing these notes that I had to fight through. So we've gotten as a community much better at that, but I think we need to be more conscious of the things that you're talking about, because we have this unique opportunity when we're teaching band, when we're teaching music, that we have access to these students from the time they're in 6th grade all the way to when they're seniors, which is more time than they get with any other teacher, than they get with any principal, and probably in some cases more time than they're spending with their families. So we have the ability, and when you do anything that you, any discipline where you're going really hard and really deep into something, you start to understand it's not so much about doing that thing well as it is about you understanding yourself and how you function in the world. And so we talk about things constantly, like how to deal with stress and anxiety, how to succeed, tactics to succeed, but also that making mistakes isn't the end of the world, and how to fail, and how to communicate and work with other people. And not only do we get to discuss these things, but we get to practice them in real time constantly.
Yeah.
Especially when you're doing things like you're expressing, like things are so hard, like good that it's hard.
Yeah.
Better that it's hard.
Yeah.
So, I mean, those are some of the most rewarding opportunities to share with a student when they're struggling with something, and it's not because they can't physically play it or they're not smart enough or they don't have an experience. It's because it's something mentally that there's a block. And being able to show them, like, oh, this is the way, and then they get past that, that is just like an incredible special opportunity.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Golly, wow.
We ask the tough questions on this podcast.
To go back a little bit, that leads into this, Shannon, when you were talking about some of this kind of militaristic approach, with the battery and whatnot. I feel like I think we're both kind of like this, and I feel really compelled to say this as well. Like, we're very, very fortunate that Mr. Wynn takes that kind of Jocko approach of deferred leadership, and he is, and Mr. Turnow was great at this too. Mr. Wynn is only going to put people in front of the students that he wants in front of him. He's only going to surround himself with people that he trusts to do the job, right? And so we're only able to do things we're able to do because Mr. Wynn is so phenomenal at what he does, and Ms. Hartfelder and Mr. Mikado, so throughout the whole podcast, there's been a lot of, what you guys are doing at Coppell, what you guys are doing, which we really appreciate, but there's a team, which we're around enough to know how unique and special that is. Thank you, Ms. Shuttlesworth, right? That we have that opportunity, because it's very, very rare. And it's rare as you add more people, usually there gets to be more egos and more issues involved, right? And less people on the same page. So we've been in that situation enough to kind of see, wow, we got all these people, everybody respects everyone, And so then I would say our approach to rehearsal is very old school, and to music is very new school. Does that kind of make sense? So things like the sticks in, the proudest moment for me that piggybacks on what you're saying of the battery, and both of those videos we watched, and I know Mr. Wynn would say the same thing if he was here, is the ballad. And you're like, man, you guys didn't play a note in the ballad. You're right.
The discipline.
They stood perfectly still, at attention. They're not pageantry on a table with they're just at attention. And that video we just watched, that second one, was filmed, like I said, it was like 40 degrees, 37 degrees. It was like the week after Lone Star. It's like freezing out there. Go back and watch Quad Girl's Nose, and you can see. And when they came out and played, the first rep was horrible. And I just lit up the entire program. Guys, by the time this video drops, it's going to be 90 degrees outside.
Yeah.
No one's going to know how cold this is, and no one's going to care. And guess what? Like, WGI will have just ended, so everyone will have heard some of the greatest playing in the world. DCI is about to start, so you know what I mean?
Yeah.
None of that matters. What matters right now is that you're persevering through this, right? And because that's such a cornerstone of that's just the approach, period.
Yeah.
Is that if you're going to do it, you're going to do it to the best of your ability, right? So there's a lot of stoicism in there that's got us here, which I think is also important for us to say that we focus 100% on the things within our control, and then understand the things outside of our control are not things we should be spending energy and time on. So the competitive side, we do not worry about at all. We go to this contest, with this set of adjudicators, we might even win. With this set of adjudicators, we might take 5th or 6th. We might win a caption, we might not, this and this, that. We have no control over that.
Yeah.
We have no control over who the people are up there, what their values are, what their musical tastes are, their relationship with other people. Which again, I think was another exciting thing of going to Austin, was to kind of get out of the area and get some fresh perspectives. Evan Blackard, Taha, gave us incredible information to help propel us through the whole season. That we wouldn't have gotten if we had just kind of stayed here. But the competitive result, so if you're doing everything right, sometimes it'll work out, and sometimes it won't. But that does
don't live
not
or die
matter.
by that.
No, because we have no control over that, right? Just like we don't have control if the bus breaks down on the way there and you don't get a chance to warm up. We don't have control in the lot. Dripping Springs, one of the vibraphones fell apart, right? Like literally, And so it's like, but did the kid freak out? No. Did she remain calm? Right? Did we get in there? Did we fix it? Did she go have a great show? Yeah, of course, right? So. That kind of stoicism and that you taking ownership of it side, that you kind of empower them through the old school rehearsal. And then the new school music, right? We're talking about this performance, this connection with music. a thing from that then feeds into that is, if you're thinking of it as a language, to learn a language, you have to be able to read, write, and speak. We spend so much time on teaching them the speaking because that is what's being evaluated. In our experience, there's like no time on the writing, right? That's a cornerstone of what we both do.
Yeah.
I don't need you to be the next Mozart.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need to be the next Kendrick Lamar, but you do need to know that measure you wrote is not 4/4. Because there's too many flags on that thing. Right? You know what I'm trying to say?
Well, there's a section in there I was like, there's no way there's even a time signature for this. It's just notes.
So then what happens is, because the students from elementary school or from 6th grade are having to write, you know, composition projects, and then in middle school composition projects, and then in high school, you end up getting these students that some of them that kind of like, maybe I'm not the best player, right? But I'm pretty good at this. So I think Mr. Wynn had 3 or 4 ensembles this year that were like student run, student written, right? This Studio Ghibli piece that I arranged for these 4 kids, and now I got to get them together and go.
It's actually a lot more than that. Now we're at the point where they have to kind of audition for it because there's too many pieces on the concert. If everybody did what they wanted to do.
That's awesome.
So it's kind of hitting it, I guess, a little bit from both sides. I guess, you know, something that I've witnessed in my career from even, I would say, really good educators that has stuck with me. A lesson that I learned from Jeff Prospery a long time ago in a private lesson is like, you can't teach every student the same. They're all different. You got to meet them where they are. And I see these guys that maybe early in their career, maybe like heights and accent tap and really strong taps was like a big part of their upbringing, right?
Yeah.
And then later, as they grew and matured, they learned about kind of relax and flow, and it was a big revelation for them, and it really helped them. But then they impart that on every single student. And it's like, well, man, Lucy McGee over here needs a little bit of this, bro. You got to meet him at his level. But they just, you know, for me, this changed my life. So I have to, and so that's, you know, we're trying to, like, these lessons of, like, something is going to be tough. That goes for all of you.
Yeah.
Something is, you know, you're going to have to work with someone. Maybe, you know, maybe you guys aren't best friends. You still got to play clean.
Yeah.
And you still got to show up prepared, right? You know, so focusing on the things they can control and then the things that are going to ultimately lead them to be successful regardless of any periphery stuff or any biases or any what. I mean, that's, you know, you can't post a video. There were some guys, these Age Out podcast guys, that posted a video on Instagram of the bass feature. And on the video post of the bass feature, you know, Billy Ninja 420 from Wanakee Middle School was like, yo, snares, traditional grip or what? You know, it's impossible for me to ever post a video anywhere where the snares, and it's like, Ralph Hardman told me once, you know, Doug, too many people judge music with their eyes and not their ears. And I'm like, yeah, Billy, like, let's listen to the music they're playing, right? That's why we're doing this, you know?
Yeah. That's really
awesome.
cool. Well, we have just loved having you guys here and hearing so many of your very unique perspectives and backgrounds and how you guys have gotten to where you're at and all the amazing things you're doing with, you know, I love that every guest we've had on here has taken time to talk about all the amazing people they work with. And I know a lot of the people who work at Coppell, and I have a high level of respect for them. And it's very clear, you know, the kind of culture that exists there. And that's certainly, you know, you guys are a huge part of that, but it's you guys are obviously part of a bigger picture. So that's also really cool to hear about as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the last thing I kind of want to give you all a chance to talk about is your books, and maybe, you know, just kind of give us like some of your motivation for writing them and maybe a little bit of your process and how it's influenced your teaching. And Patricia, do you want to start with some of the stuff you've come out with?
Sure. Momentum is, you know, obviously a 2-mallet heavy book. Doug had already come out with Super Hands, and the intent behind both books first was to have a tool that we could use with our students.
Yeah.
But, you know, being in this activity for a long time, you notice how many students struggle with learning 4 mallets, and often it's at a time where they really haven't played 2 mallets very much. So they already really don't have an understanding of the instrument and appreciation and a love for the instrument, and then you're adding to that a really difficult technique that is making it even more unapproachable. So my thinking with a lot of the solos in this was just to write stuff that was cool and that was musical and that I enjoyed playing, but at a more intermediate level, which there is a huge void of. I mean, when it comes to the all-state material, like, we're still playing music that I played in high school, and people were playing that before I was in high school, and that's crazy to me. So
we'll tell Dr. Zader that, because he dropped on our podcast that he's picking the music this year.
Well,
so maybe we'll get a momentum solo.
Maybe
that'd be cool.
That would be awesome. I've submitted it for the UIL PML, so hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll get on that. But it's just and also having a resource that you can potentially use in your lessons or in your classroom at various different levels because of the exercise material and the etudes. And we've obviously been using it at Coppell for several years, and but I've heard of people who are using it in their college programs as part of the literature that they take their students through.
Cool.
So, intermediate is such a weird zone.
It's super weird.
This is a weird, and I appreciate of the two mallet aspect of it. I think it's one thing that I try not to be an old man about, but I just it's crazy. Like I didn't hold 4 mallets till I was a senior in high school.
Yeah.
And now if I don't teach that to my 8th graders, they're behind.
Right.
And it's like, we don't know how to play 2 mallets yet. Can we please play some 2 mallets? It's a thing that it's really important, I think, for us as our like a percussion history and culture type thing that we kind of lose. So it's nice to have some new literature in that space that is accessible to kids. And they go, oh, that sounds kind of cool. I kind of want to learn that, And then by the way, you get to work on the actual great stroke and all that good stuff too.
So you've got momentum out, and obviously we talked about that being filling that 2 mallet void. How many solos are in momentum?
There are 10, and a majority of them I think could be played on vibraphone as well.
Cool.
Most of them fit on a 4 1/3 octave marimba. There's a couple at the ends that are adjustable. I mean, there might be one that is for a 5 octave marimba, maybe the last one.
Yeah.
But I tried to be mindful of that because I know a lot of programs don't have access to a lot of equipment, and
thank you for that. I think that
and they
people
want their
appreciate
students
that.
to play stuff that's cool that their students are into.
Yeah.
So I try to be really aware of that when writing the pieces.
Cool. Awesome. Is that your only book that you have out? Are you working on anything else or something else in the works? You break some news on Dream Job Podcast? We've had breaking news every episode, so I'm just saying.
Okay.
No pressure. No pressure.
Yeah. Some breaking news for sure. Well, I guess I'll run through these super quick and then get to breaking news. Is that okay?
That's great.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
and same thing. Teaching with a lot of great guys, seeing the struggle, especially a battery student felt going from 8th grade to freshman. Like that, just like having to wear a drum, use sticks bigger, play at different tempos, so on and so forth. So yeah, it was written for the need for the students, and it was just like momentum, and just like opening statement, with lots of in-depth talk with other great educators. Like, what do you need, Mr. Lebrecht in your program, Mr. Shearer, Mr. Trigg, would you, James Smith, whatever, like all these guys, like what are the things you need? And so that helped guide it to making a much better product than if I had just written it in isolation, right? I felt. And and then Master Hands was just a project of love. I didn't know if anyone would like it or not, but the book that helped change me was Master Studies by Joe Morello, and him kind of piggybacking off the ideas that George Lawrence Stone had kind of taught him. And so Master Hands was kind of like a love letter for me of like taking Master Studies kind of to the next. And I hope someday in the future, maybe Miss Yamuni will write a book that takes like Master Hands the next level, you know what I mean, or something like that. That'd be really cool. Opening Statement, Kennan has a book like Snare Solos for the Young Percussionists or something like that. So Opening Statement is my equivalent of that. Again, it's the same type of deal. I remember with Jimmy one year at HP, getting to the end of the year, and we're going to hand out solos for middle school kids, and him being like, oh my gosh, Jeff hasn't played a flam this whole year, right? So we wanted to make sure, I wanted to make sure with Opening Statement, like every solo had triplets, flams, paradiddles, open rolls, and closed rolls, some space. Oh, you want to blow up?
Yeah.
You want to go blow up a Coppell kid right now? Ask him what a quarter note is, right? You know what I mean, right? Ask him to read a dotted quarter rest, see what beat they come in on, right?
Yeah.
So all these things that we kind of want, for our students. And then closing remarks. I have not done a good job. I don't think I've ever even officially, even though it's been out for about a year, kind of talked about it. But it is. Dr. Eldridge uses it with his students and whatnot. I came from talking to turns out a lot of college professors tend to like, I guess, what we're doing at Coppell. Like we get a lot of positive feedback from like how the way the kids approach the instruments and the way they play. And in those conversations, it often comes up that when I was younger, and I don't know, maybe you guys can relate, there was a very strong divide between rudimental snare drumming and orchestral snare drumming.
Yeah.
And man, these guys hated each other. And I can remember being like 16 and thinking like, it was like the dumbest thing ever. Like, guys, clearly there's great value in both these things. Like, why are we so, in certain parts of the country, I'd say we've gotten way past that. And that's been great to hear with a lot of these collegiate educators that are like, man, I'm approaching both sides essentially the same. It's just like an adjustment maybe to the touch because this is outdoors or on a different instrument, right? But the same sensibilities and values apply. And so this is like my kind of like Delacluse, Cerrone, if you will, like a lot of like the battery kids. The way we do solos at Coppell is like as a freshman, like if, you know, TLDR, as a freshman, sophomore, you have to do a mallet and a snare, and it kind of depends what you did in the fall.
Yeah.
Right? But then junior and senior, you get to choose. I want to do a multi-solo. I want to do a timpani solo. I want to do a drum set, Nate Smith transcription, like whatever, right? So this is used for a lot of those kind of battery students to kind of help them develop more kind of sophistication in their touch away from a marching drum, like played on a concert drum, that then I find really helps when we get back to the marching. But the next book, and the one we've worked the hardest on and the longest on and probably the most excited is something we began immediately when Mr. Shear, who really planted the seeds for all this stuff at Coppell. Like if there's one single person you could single out for kind of getting it to where it is now, it would be Mr. Shear, Zach Shear for sure. And we loved working with Zach. We love working with him. Just a phenomenal educator and person and dear friend. And we all felt like there wasn't a good like beginner book for the things that we were, you know, kind of valued or had out there. And so, we've spent the last 5 or 6 years working on this, and it's like, it's not done. Hopefully a month from now it's done, right? You know what I mean? Our target was to have it like for this school year, but
maybe a soft launch for this
maybe
school
a soft
year.
launch, and then, you know,
get on the email list.
Yeah.
But yeah, just like with these, like, you know, the goal was not to write it in isolation. The goal was like, we've had so many really phenomenal educators, not just in Texas, throughout the nation, that have been using it for like the last year or two and giving us feedback. And one of the most universal things we've seen, even in, you know, you see inside Jeff Osmore's beginners at Colleyville, and it's like, wow, I've never seen something like this. And you see Bingham's beginners, and you see Tanner Triggs and Jim, you know, again, but none of them are doing it the same way.
Yeah.
Right? And that's great. So it's very Bruce Lee, like, let's take the things that work, let's disregard the things that don't, let's stay true to our stuff. But we want to give something that, the goal here was like to create a product that like would take care of all the stuff you needed to take care of, but would also stay out of your way, so you have the freedom. You know, some things are so, like, this isn't necessarily for like the band director in Oklahoma that played clarinet per se.
Right.
You can use it because it's going to be portable and affordable. I can guarantee you that,
Yeah.
right? You know, it's not, you know, it's not going to be besides that Shakespeare book or whatever.
Right.
You know? But we're aiming for we're aiming for like the percussion educator, right?
Yep.
That has their, you know, but wants to know like, man, what are some of the things they're doing over there that are getting their kids to kind of play like this a little bit earlier? And, you know, I'm very, very, very proud of the sequential nature of the snare, much like this. Like when I was growing up, it was very much more like this chapter's about buzz rolls, and this one's about paradiddles, and this one's about flams. And you don't go to a physical trainer that's like, we're gonna spend 2 hours just on your biceps, and then not touch them again from, you know.
Right.
So I'm very proud of that, but I think that the true beauty of the book is, you know, Joe Hobbs can teach some kids how to play snare.
Oh yeah.
Hector Gill can teach them, Rick Rodriguez, you know, and that's not to say that these guys, that we can't teach mallets. But the approach to mallets in this book is not like something that exists currently, and might actually get the kids like enjoy the process and like want to do it, and you know,
secret sauce.
Yeah, so we're pretty excited about the potential of that kind of easing the burden for both the educator and the students. You know,
Very cool. We get to drop a name.
Player's Guide.
Player's Guide for the Beginning Percussionist. The cover has a very old school, like Nintendo Power kind of vibe to it.
Oh, love it.
Yeah.
You guys are, I'm learning this about you. You guys are big video game people. I think
Oh,
it's
you didn't know
super
that?
cool. I mean, I kind of saw inklings on Facebook, but now it's come up so much in the, and that's going to be one of my questions for you here in a little
got
bit.
the
But
Nintendo Seal of Approval on it.
Yes,
oh,
it
nice.
does.
You guys want to check the copyright on that?
Well,
You might
it's
end up
modified a little
losing.
bit.
Yeah, nice.
Maybe the Team Islas Seal of Approval.
So, Player's Guide for the Beginner Percussionist by Team Islas. Or Doug
Zach
Bush.
Shear, Doug Bush, Patricia Islas.
Oh,
by
very
all three
cool.
of us.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, shout out Zach Shear for helping you guys out with that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, really excited about it.
Very cool. Well, thank you for sharing about that, and we're going to be looking for that. And it's cool. I didn't think we were interviewing an authors of beginner. I thought we had those covered, and now I'm learning.
Nice.
I'm learning it through
Man, we
this
did
interview.
good. We did good.
Yeah, nice work for
That's
us
awesome.
for sure.
Good on us.
Well, we've got a couple kind of silly like segments. We like to keep it light, and you know, so much of podcasting and so much of band and going to clinics is like so serious, you know. And so I think we're trying to just kind of keep it light and just, you know, we're all human here. So I've got a short little segment. It's just called Favorites. that I just want to just kind of spitfire, like you guys just like the first thing that comes to your mind, and these are all just for both of you guys. So if you guys just want to offer up your whatever your first answer is, and then Shannon's got a fun segment he's going to do with you guys afterwards. Sound good?
Sounds
okay,
good.
so this is Team Islas' favorite. So I'm going to say favorite streaming show.
Streaming show. Oh gosh. Does the X-Files count?
I would say no. Because
okay.
I'm saying like came out on streaming, like
Oh, okay,
a Black
yeah,
Mirror
came out.
or something. Yeah.
Okay, came out on streaming. Oh gosh. I mean, Arcane's probably not the top, but it is up there for sure. That was a pleasant surprise because we both played League of Legends, Doug way more than I have, but we're familiar with those characters.
Which is the truth.
We're familiar with those characters, and have seen many times where like taking something from another genre just does not work.
Right.
But the artistry and the care and the time put into the show is just insane.
What is it about? I've never heard of it.
I mean it's animated, but I don't know, what
It's
is
like
it
an
about?
animated kind of fantasy fiction, I guess.
Yeah,
you'd
maybe
say.
fantasy fiction thing.
Cool.
It was a short series, like maybe 9 episodes, I think, of the whole thing.
Nice. Same answer.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Like, there's a show called Vikings.
Cool.
Like, but maybe
That
that came
doesn't
out on
count
TV.
either.
Yeah,
no.
okay, yeah,
That was the History Channel.
Vikings, but yeah, it would be Arcane then. Yeah.
Nice. It sounds like people need to check that out. Okay. Favorite ethnic food.
Does tacos count?
I don't think so in Texas.
Okay. That's kind of just food for me. Probably sushi.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, super lame. Sushi, I guess we're just gonna same for everything.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
you guys are on the same wavelength. That's for sure. Favorite all-time drum corps show.
Oh gosh. What is
Doug, I know you got a good answer for this one.
what is the Pat Metheny show? You know what I'm
Crossman.
talking about? Yes.
Yeah, Crossman.
Yeah.
Nice.
96.
Yeah.
Go
I thought they
Bones.
did that so well,
Oh yeah.
and that music is so great on its own. But I've heard lots of versions of it that were not as effective.
Sure. Yeah, well, hopefully that doesn't include our indoor show, which
Oh,
we just
no.
did.
No, you guys
which
are gonna
was
do great.
all Pat, well, we just got done with it. It was all Pat Metheny music, Letter from Home, and First Circle, and a great tune. I'll shout out this tune that every time we went to a critique, no one had known what the first minute of our show was, and it's a great piece called Message to a Friend. That is on an album with him and a double bassist whose name escapes me right now, but Message to a Friend, Pat Metheny, great tune. So, do you have a different one, Doug?
Yeah, favorite drum corps show would be 96 Phantom Regiment. That was like I'm old enough that it was kind of pre-internet in high school, and so I didn't even know what drum corps was, and I just really liked drumming. And a family friend that had marched drum corps got me and my best friend tickets to this drum corps show at Lake Highlands, like
Yeah.
a junior in high school. Like, I don't know, bro. I hear it's like professional marching band. We're both like big drum set guys.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's check it out. And they were in solid black, red drums with black hardware, right? And they're playing Shostakovich. And this is the first year Phantom won. And it was so dark and so heavy. And that moment literally changed my life forever. Like watching that, it was like, this is what I'm gonna do. Whatever this is what I'm gonna do.
Wow.
So that has to get the shout out, I guess.
That's awesome. Okay, next one is favorite video game series.
Mario. I'm a Mario girl.
Yeah?
Yes. Give me all the Mario.
But you haven't seen the Super Mario Bros. Movie.
I know I haven't seen it just because I don't have time.
Yeah. too many beginner
I'm gonna have my
books.
day off.
And
I'm gonna get my boba tea. I'm gonna turn the lights off. We're gonna watch it at home. It's gonna be great.
Nice. That's awesome. For you?
A series, I guess it would have to be Street Fighter.
Cool.
Yeah. I was probably in college a year longer than I should have been because of Street Fighter 3.
Nice.
I was competing.
I think a lot of people can say that as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I guess Street Fighter.
Cool. Favorite vacation destination?
Well, that one's easy, and it's gonna be exactly the same. Japan.
Oh, nice.
We went our first time in 2019, and that was just an incredible experience. And we're planning a trip to go back here next year.
Nice.
But yeah,
So many places you can travel while you're over there. My
Yeah.
brother and his girlfriend just got back from a trip to Tokyo, and they went to a couple of different places. And just taking the train, like you just take the train and you
Oh,
just
I
go
know.
kind of anywhere. It's super cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then I got two more. Favorite sport to watch on TV?
Mixed martial arts.
Yeah, I
UFC.
guess mixed
I
martial
kind of had an
arts.
idea that one of y'all
Yeah.
might say that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, we're both
Not
kind of
really.
like that. We trained in a lot of martial arts, and it's kind of like Joe Rogan said. It's like, you see a basketball game, a hockey game, whatever. There's a dispute. The guys throw down the puck, the ball, whatever, and they start beating each other up. You're never gonna watch like a mixed martial art where like, yo, let's play a game of horse to resolve this. It just gets rid of all the stuff and just distills it down. If we're saying athleticism, like it just kind of gets rid of all the other stuff, and it's just like, okay, here it is. Yeah.
That's funny you say that, because Kenan straight up, he didn't even say a sport, he just said Cowboys. He skipped telling me what sport. His brain went right to Cowboys. That was kind of funny. Okay, this is my last one. I'm very curious to hear your answer on this one. Favorite movie trilogy of all time?
Oh gosh, movie trilogy.
Has to be a trilogy.
A trilogy.
Oh. What are trilogies? Like, I mean, I know what a trilogy is, but what are?
Oh, you got like Lord of the Rings, Matrix, Star Wars. You can go back to like Clint Eastwood, old spaghetti westerns.
Was the Hobbit movie a trilogy?
I think they did a trilogy of those.
Yeah, I recently watched that again, and I really liked it.
Nice. There you go. Hobbit, the three Hobbit movies.
There you
go. Awesome. Great. I'll get you out of that.
What's your favorite?
Oh, I don't know. I think what I alluded to, the Clint Eastwood spaghetti westerns from the 60s are pretty well done.
I've not ever seen those.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, not a lot of dialogue, but like a lot of intensity and build up. And Ennio Morricone is a huge Quentin Tarantino influence composer. Some pretty iconic music in there. So I'll probably say I think it's called the Dollars trilogy, because it starts out a fistful of dollars and then a few dollars more, and then the last movie, which is the most famous, is The Good, the Bad, the Ugly.
Yeah, that one I've heard of.
Yeah, that was the last one they came out with, and by that point it was like worldwide
Everybody knows
famous.
it.
And yeah, but the first two are really good also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna project into the future, kind of like wishful trilogy, because it could possibly be, and it's Tarantino. It would be Kill Bill.
Oh, let's get a Kill Bill Volume 3.
Yeah, because 1 and 2 are my favorite. Those are my favorite movies.
So
is
good.
Kill Bill 1 and 2, and recently Tarantino. I just got done reading his newest book.
Same here. Cinema
Speculation. Yes, yeah. And so I've, he's been doing all the interviews to pump it up a little bit, and he has said like multiple times like that maybe for his last film
he'll do Kill Bill 3. So it's interesting you say that, because I read another article. You've read more than me on that, but I read one article that said he was maybe doing his last movie on a producer or famous like screenwriter from Hollywood. I read that somewhere, but I've also heard the Kill Bill theory as well. So that would be great to bring Uma back. And the cool thing about cinema speculation, we talked about another book yesterday, but when I was reading that, because I just saw that on Audible and I was like, oh, of course I want to read this, and that exposed me to so many more movies than I ever would have known about. And so what I did, and I recommend anyone who loves movies to go and do this, read the book, and I got like 2 or 3 chapters in, because like every chapter is a different
book,
and how he was influenced. But what I had to stop myself. I was like, wait a second, I'm gonna like get to the next chapter, and when I get to a movie that I've never seen, I'm gonna watch the movie first.
Great idea.
And that changed the way that I absorbed the book.
Oh, sure.
And so like I'd never seen Deliverance.
Yeah.
I had never seen I don't think I'd ever seen Taxi Driver all the way through, so I had to watch that one.
Yeah.
And then there was Sisters was another weird one that I had never seen, and just a bunch of other ones that are really great in there. So that's cool that you brought that up.
Awesome.
So that's my favorite segment. So thank y'all for indulging in that.
Yeah, thank you.
Shannon? You've been sitting there plotting your world famous segment here. Did you guys get a chance to listen to this with Dr. Zader?
Oh yeah,
Loved
it. Yeah.
Cool.
I have a segment called Good Idea, Bad Idea, in which I ask questions. Some of them make sense, most of them don't. All right, here we go. You guys remember. Good idea, bad. Doug, this first one for you. Good idea, bad idea. Hand-to-hand splits on the bass drums.
Great idea.
Snare drums.
Great idea.
Quad drums.
Great idea.
Marimbas.
Great idea.
Rat players.
Great idea.
Okay. I had a feeling that was going there.
We did not say vibraphone players. I'm offended.
Genuinely, Mr. Jacobs, both of the girls last year almost made the baseline. The baseline last year, very, very strong. It's 4 seniors and 1 junior. Any other year in my career, they both would have been on the baseline. Any other year, but so they end up on rack. And they are such strong bass drummers, and that's what they want to do. We almost wrote split on the rack on the opposite sides, right? And of course, like we're state finals, you have a girl over here, like side 1 on timbali, lining licks up with the battery on the 30 on side 2 between hashes.
Yeah.
No one's catching
No
this
one's
is
catching
happening,
these
but
things,
that timing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, rack, you name it. Drum major, split hand to hand, whatever. Let's go.
I don't know how that would work, but
That might be a disaster. All right,
That's awesome.
Miss Islas, good idea, bad idea. 6 mallet vibe solos.
For me personally, bad idea.
Bad idea. Okay.
Because I have no experience teaching 6 mallets. I've never played anything with 6 mallets, so I have no right to teach it to anyone.
It's superfluous.
I don't have any desire to play it myself. I have enough to work with 2 mallets, let alone 4 mallets, so 6 seems, like too
Seems a
much.
lot. It's
It
a
does.
lot of things. All right, both of you, good idea, bad idea, starting percussionists on drum set.
I think it depends on. I mean, are you talking about in your program, like in your band program, or just as a kid that wants to
Let me
play
ask you if it's a
music?
good idea or bad idea. I don't know. There's not a lot of context here.
no
Okay, good
context.
idea.
You can
Good
contextualize
idea.
it.
It's a good idea, okay.
Yeah, good idea.
Mr. Bush,
Bad idea.
bad idea.
Yeah. I think that pad. Again, there's a lot of things we didn't touch here that but one of the things I don't view pad as an analog for snare drum. I view it as an analog to develop percussion musicianship.
Yes.
So again, one of the things in our beginner book is that, so let me ask you this, Shannon. What instruments does a Forney High School percussionist play throughout the entirety of the year in which they play more flams than double stops?
I would say snare drum.
But everything else, they play more double stops than flams?
Yes.
Yeah, so throughout our beginner book, there is a lot of double stop,
Yeah.
right? Like on the pad, right?
Yeah.
If you come watch the battery warm up, you're going to see we play double stops on almost every single hand. If I can't do it here, I'm going to have a really hard time doing it here when I have this, all this, with different heights and different notes and so on and so forth. So yeah, I don't. Like the pad is used as a vehicle. I think with if I had a student coming in, young student that's never done anything percussively, drum set can be so big and overwhelming. And what does this foot do? And where does this thing go? And where does this go? I would probably, depending on the student, want half a year to a year, making it really comfortable, simple, just one thing, get the mechanics here figured out, and then transition them to drum set.
I think the revelation that you just stated when talking about approaching beginner percussion that way, that just makes worth listening to this podcast. Just that 1 minute of what you just said, because I hadn't even thought about that. I mean, that's so smart to think about the pad that way, and then what you said about just of course, when they go to 8th grade and 9th grade, when we have them playing shit scales and all over the keyboard, it's when have they ever done that before? Why not do it more on the pad?
Yeah, I mean, have you ever seen Marcus before? You don't think those quad drummers can get behind a marimba and throw down? You don't think those snare drummers, right? You know what I'm trying to say? And it's not because it's some wildly different thing. It's because music is music, and I just need to adjust my touch to what's appropriate for this instrument at the time, right? But
Yeah, cool.
I'm a little offended that you thought that was the best question.
I'm sorry, I couldn't even know I had to stop. I'm a little shocked that it's funny, these silly segments were meant to be silly,
I know.
and now they're very
Very serious.
They're very
It's very
serious.
pedagogical in the answer.
it's just how we roll.
No, that's totally fine.
I'm gonna call an audible here. This is not a good idea, bad idea. This is give me a number.
Oh,
How many pillows per person in the bed?
1, 2.
Okay. All right. Good idea.
Does the dog count?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, and four
Guilty.
naked friends.
Yeah.
Did they also get a pillow?
Oh, well, they share.
Ours.
I share my pillow with the dog. It's her pillow.
Yeah, I'm up to 2 dogs now, and so the space in the bed is running out. So I'm in the market for some large ottomans to place at the end.
Yeah. Good luck with that. Is that where you're going to sleep?
I'll sleep on the ottoman. Nice, but yeah, exactly. Good one.
I think this is probably more for Miss Islas. Good idea, bad idea. Boba tea at 9 a.m.
Great idea.
2 p.m.
Great idea.
11 p.m.
Great idea.
2 a.m.
There isn't a PM or an AM you can say that isn't a good idea.
You're saving some time there. Okay. That's what
We were gonna go through all.
Yeah.
We're gonna get there. All right, cool, fantastic. Hey, Mr. Bush, good idea, bad idea. Writing things you know you will have to water
Ooh. For a group you're teaching?
for a group you're teaching.
Okay, bad idea. Yeah, I don't mind writing something that I'm not sure if I'm gonna have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it's like, oh, I don't know about this. Like in the bass feature there, for example, I had always had this idea of these split 9-lits, the crescendoed and decrescendoed, a single partial, a student. I'd never comprehended that I would ever get a high school program to a level they could do it.
Right.
And then last year at the camp, Mr. Clayton Straub, shout out Mr. Straub, right, was doing the basses. Usually in the camps I do the snares, and then during the season I do the basses, you know. And but you know, I've set the basses up, and it's like day 2 of camp, and we're at lunch, and he's like, Doug, man, they can already play the whole opener, you know, like, and it's really good. And I'd already written it to be super hard. And I was like, okay, well, listen, man, I got this crazy idea I've always wanted to do. I don't know. And he was like, man, I think they can do it. I think they can do it. And so then I pulled him aside and said, hey, I reserve the right at any time to change this to a 3s run or whatever it needs to be, you know, but you guys have earned the opportunity to do this, right? And they took ownership over it. So I wouldn't ever write something, though, that I was like 100, like, this will definitely not make it. I wouldn't write that.
That's awesome, man. You're fantastic. All right, last one, because this has gotten too serious. I'm gonna have some questions. Cooking bacon shirtless. Good idea, bad idea?
I think that's a bad idea. Have you ever cooked anything and stuff like flies off of the...
This may or may not be born out of personal experience.
I have a
Not a
really
wise idea.
embarrassing experience with that not that long ago. I had just gotten a cast iron skillet for the first time and super into, like, you know, getting steaks, and I was walking around my house like might have not had a shirt on, and it had been a while since I had done it, and I had getting the cast iron skillet hot. My dog was in there, there's a bunch of distractions. I'm just like, I just get the steak out and it's like,
Oh, no.
it hurt.
Oh, my God.
There were burn marks for multiple days. It was not fun. So yeah, bad idea for sure.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for inviting us.
Our
This is an
pleasure.
awesome opportunity. We're so excited for you guys for doing this podcast.
Thank you.
We're excited to see the other episodes that you recorded and the future ones. And
Thank you.
man, you guys are just slaying it over here in this little corner of the
Appreciate
world.
that. It is its own corner. Yes. It very
It's
much
been
is. Thank
full
you
of
for making the drive
Kind
out
of
here.
witnessing you guys do great things. So
Thank you so much, and seriously, from the bottom of our hearts, like, thank you guys for everything you do for the percussion community and sharing your very unique perspective, super unique perspective that I think a lot of people are going to, you know, the future Doug Bush, the future Patricia Islas might be listening to this and thinking, oh, I can do this, you know, and that's really what we're here to do, is try to provide, you know, your voice and to hear y'all's story. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Sincerely appreciated. Thank
Absolutely. So thank you all so much for tuning in today to this awesome episode of Dream Job Podcast. Whether you're on Apple Podcast or Spotify Podcast or Facebook or YouTube or checking us out on TikTok, we hope you continue to follow and like and share, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks a lot.
Share the show. Thank you.